Chapter 803. Ancient Kunlun Abyss. The place where the human Emperor Tsang and the Master Deity once fought. That battle was so intense that it caused the entire Kunlun Abyss to be destroyed and sunk to the bottom of the sea. The aura of that battle continued to linger to this day, and no one dared to approach it. Today Chu Kuangren arrived. Looking at the messy Kunlun Abyss that was filled with battle scars, Chu Kuangren's soul immediately left his body and shone brightly in the deep sea. He immediately pushed his soul perception to the limit. He came here to look for the earth soul and human soul. He wanted to see if there were any remnants of soul energy here. Under the control of the heaven soul, the entire ancient Kunlun Abyss was filled with specks of starlight, which then converged into an illusory figure. That figure was Chu Kuangren's other soul. In other words, the human Emperor Tsang. Tsang looked around at his surroundings in confusion. Then he saw Chu Kuangren and smirked. "Looks like you've returned to the future. Long time no see, real body. To me it's only been a few months. And not counting the 10 or so eras after my death, I haven't seen you for 10,000 years. The human Emperor Tsang smiled. "Alright, return to your body," Chu Kuangren said. The human Emperor Tsang nodded slightly. Although he turned into a stream of light and returned to Chu Kuangren's body with the heaven soul. Although he had died once, the remnant soul energy of the human Emperor Tsang still allowed Chu Kuangren to reconstruct the fourth transformation Earth Soul. The human Emperor Tsang's 10,000 years of memories quickly flowed into his mind. Among them, some of their insights into Taoism were also included. Among the three souls, the heaven soul was the dominant one. After Chu Kuangren's heaven soul left, although it was difficult for the Earth Soul and human soul to improve, there were still many insights after 10,000 years. These were of great use to Chu Kuangren. What a long time. After Chu Kuangren finished absorbing the human Emperor Tsang's memories, a sense of vicissitudes flashed across his eyes. Suddenly there was a tremor in his body. He frowned slightly and took out a transparent crystal. Within the crystal, there were specks of 5-colored light appearing one after another. Something happened to the 5 Elements Divine Shadow Army? The 5 Ways Godly Shadow Army was a force that Chu Kuangren had left on Firmament Star to protect the development of the Black Firmament Divine Cult. When the soldiers of this army died in battle, their souls would return to the core of the army, which was the crystal in Chu Kuangren's hand. Now there were light spots continuously appearing in the crystal. This meant that the soldiers of the 5 Elements Divine Shadow Army were dying one after another. There aren't many forces in the Firmament Star that can threaten the 5 Elemental Shadow Army. It seems like the gods have made their move. Black Heaven Sect. The gods stood in the air, looking down at the astonishing cloud of seas formation and the 5 Elemental Divine Shadow Army. Their eyes were filled with ridicule. "I want to see how long you can last." A high god with the head of a crocodile chortled. He was the crocodile god, a subordinate of the sea god. He held a huge axe in his hand and chopped down. A dazzling blade light flashed and covered half the sky. A vast divine power aura shattered the astonishing cloud of seas formation's formation spirit cloud dragon. Like a hot knife through butter, the saber light slashed toward the immortal hall. With a loud bang, it smashed onto a yellow barrier. That was a barrier that the Deep Earth Guardians constructed using the Earth energy. Its defensive power was so strong that it could even block the attacks of the gods. The Deep Earth Guardians protected the immortal hall. On the other hand, the Sharp Gold Guardians, Crimson Flame Guardians, Greenwood Guardians and Feeble Water Guardians were fighting the gods, but they were clearly at a disadvantage. Chu Kuangren had improved a lot in recent years, and so had the 5 Elemental Divine Shadow Army. The 5 great commanders of the Divine Shadow Army were now at the upper heavenly honorable realm, and the rest had all become emperors. However, against the gods before them, it was still not enough. Even the weakest of the gods was at the heavenly honorable realm. It was only because these Divine Shadow Guards were not afraid of death and had been through hundreds of battles that they were able to slow down the pace of the gods' attack. I really don't know where the Black Heaven Divine Cult found such a strange army. Every one of them is so powerful. The serpent deity who was in his python form, could not help but feel puzzled as he fought the Crimson Flame Commander. Beside him, a god who controlled the storm did not seem to care. He snorted and said, "No matter what, the Black Heaven Divine Cult and the Black Heaven Sect must be destroyed today. How dare these people proclaim that we're false gods and worship some true Black Heaven deity? What a joke." That was the reason why the gods came to them. A long time ago they were the faith of the human race. Even after they were sealed, there were still believers who secretly grew stronger and provided them with the power of faith. However, after they awakened from the seal, they realized that their believers had all gone to worship some true Black Heaven deity. They even claimed that they were false gods? How could they tolerate that? They wanted to destroy the Black Heaven divine cult, the self-proclaimed true Black Heaven deity, Chu Kuangren, and everyone else related to him. Inside the barrier, Lan Yu, Elder Rian, Xian Qi, Murong Xian, and the others watched the gods attack with grave expressions. If this goes on, I'm afraid we won't be able to hold on much longer. Elder Rian said solemnly. The Five Affinities Divine Shadow Army was their strongest combat force, but if even the Five Affinities Divine Shadow Army could not hold on, what more them? All disciples below the Emperor realm have retreated. A pitch-black figure arrived. It was the Mystic Sword Guard. Back then she had infiltrated the Dark Divine Cult and became their saintess. In recent years she had also broken through and become an emperor. Through hard work, she had gained complete control of the Emperor's Paths branch before she switched to the Black Heaven Divine Cult. Now she was an elder of the Black Heaven Divine Cult. Thank you for your hard work, Elder Rian. Even if we die this time, we'll at least be able to preserve some of our seeds, Elder Rian said. Don't be discouraged. With me around, you won't die so easily, the godly phoenix Lil Red said in her bright red armor. She had matured quite a bit. She looked like a 17 or 18-year-old human girl. Now she was the strongest combat force in the Black Heaven sect. Her cultivation level had reached the upper heavenly honorable realm, and she could even fight against a half-step Tao Lord. Beside the godly phoenix, Lan Yu and Gu Linglong, who had returned to Firmament Star and had become an emperor, wielded their emperor weapons with a determined look on their faces. If you want to destroy the Black Heaven sect, you'll have to step over our dead bodies, Lan Yu said coldly. Crack, crack. At that moment the gods had broken a hole in the barrier. Several gods rushed in. Haha, we finally cracked open this tortoise shell. Mortals die. Divine power erupted and whizzed towards Lan Yu and the others. The godly phoenix took a step forward with phoenix fire burning in her palm. I am Chu Hong of the Black Heaven sect. Have a taste of my phoenix fire. With a slap of her palm, the whizzing phoenix fire burned with divine power. Several gods could not dodge in time and were blasted away. It's a divine beast. I didn't expect there to be a divine beast here. This godly phoenix's strength is at least on par with an upper god. Leave this godly phoenix to me. You guys go deal with the others. An upper god fought the godly phoenix. The rest of the gods attacked Lan Yu, the Mystic Sword Guard, and the others. Lesser world open. Lan Yu, who had become a heavenly honorable, immediately opened her lesser world. Meanwhile, Gu Linglong, the Mystic Sword Guard, and the others had also engaged the gods. Chapter 804. In the Black Heaven sect. Everyone was locked in battle with the gods. Just as Lan Yu and the others were losing ground, an incomparably cold voice came from beyond the heavens. Gods, you dare to show yourself? You're courting death. Several voices came from the sky. Several streaks of light flew over. It was the Heaven Executioner. As the Heavenly Executioner appeared, mysterious Tao patterns circulated in all directions. The power of heavenly punishment instantly intimidated all the gods present. The Heaven Executioners. They're actually here. So what if it's them? In the battle against the rebel god, they suffered serious injuries. I guess they haven't recovered yet. That's right. It's a good chance for us to get our revenge for the battle against the gods. The gods were frightened at first, but they soon regained their senses and looked at the few Heaven Executioners with cold killing intent in their eyes. The hatred between the gods and the Heaven Executioners was too great. In the war against the gods, most of the gods were sealed by the 9 Heaven Executioners. Let's kill these Heavenly Executioners first, then destroy the Black Heaven sect. The crocodile god said coldly. Let's give it a try then. The Celestial Executioner and the gods were locked in battle, and the terrifying energy waves shook half of Firmament Star. With the arrival of the Celestial Executioner, the pressure on Lan Yu, Elder Rian, and the others was greatly reduced. But it was still a critical situation. In outer space, the Tao Lords were also paying attention to this battle. The Myriad Arts Tao Lord Luo Shui and the others wanted to take action, but they were stopped by the Black-Yellow Tao Lord and his men. Black-Yellow Sect Master, what are you trying to do? The Scarlet Sun Tao Lord questioned furiously. The Myriad Laws Tao Master and Luo Shui also looked coldly at the Black-Yellow Tao Master. The Heavenly Yellow Tao Lord said indifferently, I've already reached an agreement with the gods. As long as the Heavenly Executioner and the Black Divine Cult are no more, they will assist us in conquering other civilizations and strengthening Firmament Star. These words caused the Master of the Infinite Laws to widen his eyes as he looked at the other party in disbelief. Shen Huang, do you know what you're saying? Do you want the greatest hero in the battle against the gods to die? The Tao Lord of 10,000 Laws felt that such a thing was utterly ridiculous. For the sake of the human race, the heavenly executioners had risked their lives in the battle against the gods. They had made great contributions to the war and everyone respected them. But now, in order to cooperate with the gods who were once the enemies of the human race, the Black-Yellow Path Master actually wanted the Heaven Executioner to die? The humans protected by the heavenly executioners were going to stab them in the back. The Myriad Dharma Path Master felt that there was nothing more ridiculous in this world than this. He looked at the mysterious Yellow Path Master and felt that he was a complete stranger. Only now did he fully understand that Qin wasn't that comrade that he could fight alongside in the battle of the gods any longer. Their great achievements will be recorded in the history of the human race. For the future of the human race, I believe they will be willing. The mysterious Yellow Path Master said indifferently. You keep talking about the future of the human race. Are you talking about your future or the future of the human race? The Path Master of 10,000 Laws was furious. When I become a human king, I will be one with the human race. My future will be the future of the human race. There is no difference. Bullshit. The Tao Lord of the Scarlet Sun Tao Lord couldn't take it anymore. A large black hammer appeared in his hand, and he swung it with a force that was powerful enough to shatter stars. Amidst the rumbling, a vast expanse of the void exploded. The mysterious Yellow Path Master punched out, and the power of heaven and earth erupted. With a bang, the Tao Lord of the Scarlet Sun Tao Lord was sent flying. His expression changed slightly as he looked at the mysterious Yellow Path Master. Your strength? Surprised, right? I've already ascended to the peak of the Minor Tao Master. Now even Hun Dun is no match for me. Now the human race respects me. Apart from me, who dares to call themselves a king? The mysterious Yellow Path Master laughed coldly. All these years he had been hiding his true strength. The Tao Lord of the Myriad Dharma Path Master had a solemn look in his eyes. The peak of the Minor Tao Master was 2 minor stages higher than him. 1 minor stage was already a gap that was difficult to make up for, let alone 2. Are you all going to follow the mysterious Yellow Path Master and abandon the human race? The Tao Lord of the Myriad Dharma Path Master looked at the other Tao Lords. The other Tao Lords looked at each other. The demon race will not participate in the affairs of the human race. The Tao Lord of the Bright Moon Path Master retreated to the side with the other Tao Lords. The remaining few humans took a deep breath and stood beside the Black-Yellow Path Master. Their intentions were already very clear. I agree with the mysterious Yellow Path Master. It's time for a change in Firmament Star. The gods may be our greatest help. Yes, perhaps the mysterious Yellow Path Master is right. Seeing this scene, the Tao Lord of the Myriad Dharma Path Master felt a chill in his heart. He hadn't expected that the comrades who had fought side by side with him in the past would actually be divided to such an extent. If the king was still here, would you still dare to do this? The Tao Lord of the Myriad Dharma Path Master sighed. Hearing this, everyone's eyes flashed and their expressions changed. An imposing figure in white involuntarily appeared in their minds. If that person was still here, who would dare to do this? After all, that was the greatest king of the human race. Unfortunately, that person is no longer here. The human race needs a new king, and that is me to lead them into a new era, the mysterious Yellow Path Master said indifferently, his eyes showing impatience. He hated it when people mentioned that person. In the past, like the others, he worshipped the king. However, as his ambition grew, he gradually changed. He wanted to be the new king. That king had been dead for so long, but his reputation still remained, becoming the biggest obstacle on his path to becoming a king. Every time someone mentioned him, there would be an irrepressible look of worship in their eyes, which was very irritating to him. How could a dead king compare to him when he was alive? You want to be a king? You're not qualified. The Dharma Tao Lord roared. His Emperor's chi and Taoist markings exploded to the maximum as he fought the mysterious Yellow Path Master. The Scarlet Sun Tao Lord and Luo Shui also joined in. In the vast galaxy, the human Tao Lords were fighting each other. Inside the Black Heaven sect, the Heavenly Executioner and the higher gods were fighting fiercely. Although the Heavenly Executioner had the power of heavenly punishment, he had suffered significant injuries during the war against the gods, and he was also injured during the Battle of the Blood Abyss. This battle was very forceful. Haha, it's quite lively here. At this moment there was a sudden burst of laughter. Several streaks of light flew over. Every single one of them contained terrifying divine power. Everyone present could feel a strong sense of pressure. Such an aura. They're no ordinary gods. They're top-notch higher gods. They're probably not far off from the overgods. This aura, could it be them? The heavenly executioners exchanged glances. The streams of light dissipated. 7 gods of different shapes and sizes appeared before everyone. There were old and young, men and women, and all of them had powerful divine power auras. Long time no see, heavenly executioner. A black-haired burly man looked at the heavenly executioner and said indifferently, "Pride God, it's you guys." The first heavenly executioner looked at him coldly. "Hey, your auras are really so weak that I'm surprised. It seems that the war against the gods has hurt you guys to this day." The pride god looked at the heavenly executioners and sneered. "You guys are out. That demon god has also broken his seal, right?" The first heavenly executioner said indifferently, "It's not just the demon god. The other overgods will also be unsealed. This vast land will once again be under the control of the gods. As for you rebels, only death awaits you." Chapter 805. Only death. Pride God said coldly. A powerful and domineering divine power aura that was close to a lord level burst forth and engulfed the entire Black Heaven sect. This aura was far more powerful than that of an ordinary high god. Tisk, as expected of a top god who was second only to the Lord God among the gods of the past. This power is really amazing. The crocodile god could not help but click his tongue in wonder. The people from the Black Heaven sect were in despair. It was already a very difficult fight. Now, another 7 top-notch superior gods had come. Such power was not something they could match at all. Where is Chu Kuangren? Next to Pride God, a demon emperor walked out. In the eyes of the experts present, his aura could be said to be insignificant. The heaven executioners didn't notice him at first. However, Lan Yu and the others were quite surprised to see him. Demon Emperor Pride, why is he here? It seems like it has something to do with those gods. Is he here to seek revenge against the sect leader? Upon hearing Chu Kuangren's name, everyone from the Black Heaven sect could not help but feel sad and nostalgic. 3 years ago, the Descendant Self-Sword had returned to the Black Heaven sect on its own. Since then, there had been no further movements from the Descendant Self-Sword. Someone from the outer domain had informed them that Chu Kuangren had died in battle. They still couldn't believe this news. How could that person die? However, 3 years had passed and there was still no news of Chu Kuangren. Oh, he's not here? Demon Emperor Pride's emperor's thoughts swept across the Black Heaven sect, but he did not see Chu Kuangren anywhere. He sneered and said, "Oh well, now that the deities have descended, I'll take your lives to show off the might of the deities." Where did this idiot come from? How dare he talk nonsense here? San Xing snorted coldly. He raised his hand and activated the emperor's chi, then punched out. The monarch chi tore through the air, shattering the void. Demon Emperor Pride couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He felt that this attack was unbelievably powerful. Just as he was about to be smashed to death by the punch, Pride God, who was next to him, made a move and gently raised his hand to block the attack for him. "You're too weak. Step aside." Arrogance God said lightly. "Yes." Demon Emperor Pride gulped and retreated to the side. For the first time he felt insignificant. He was only at the early Emperor realm. In front of these gods and celestial venerables, he was like an ant that could be easily crushed to death. "All right, Heaven Executioner, go to hell." The Pride God raised his hand and activated his divine power. However, at that moment, the first Heavenly Executioner suddenly chuckled. The aura on his body rose rapidly. Heavenly Executioners never fear death. I only hate the fact that I haven't killed enough gods. The first Heavenly Enforcer let out a low roar, and an iron sword suddenly appeared in his hand as the aura of a Tao Lord erupted. "What? Big brother, don't?" The expressions of the gods and the Heavenly Executioners changed. Pride God's expression was somewhat unsightly. "Madman, you actually disregarded your internal injuries and activated a secret technique to forcefully erupt with the strength of a Tao Lord. In this way you'll die without a doubt. Before I die, I will drag all of you down with me." The first Heavenly Executioner raised his sword and slashed out. Wherever the sword chi passed, a large area of the void shattered. In the face of this sword, Pride God's face suddenly changed, and he broke out in a cold sweat. He shouted to the other 6 gods, "Join forces." The 7 top-notch higher gods unleashed their divine powers at the same time. Greedy demonic light. Arrogant divine blade slash. Jealous eye. Pink illusionary butterfly. The 7 gods activated their divine powers to the extreme and turned them into various attacks. Demonic light, sword chi, fish chi, flying red butterflies, and many other attacks clashed with the first heavenly executioner's sword chi. It was as if stars had collided, and everything within millions of miles was shaken. The 7 gods were sent flying by the sword chi, and their faces were slightly pale. In the Black Heaven sect, Elder Rian and the others were overjoyed. Although they did not recognize the first heavenly executioner, he was so powerful now. If he could defeat the gods, then they would be saved. However, the next moment something happened again. After the first heavenly executioner unleashed another sword strike, he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face instantly turned pale. "Ah, looks like your injuries are much more serious than I thought. You can only unleash one sword strike and you're already done for." Pride God saw this and immediately laughed proudly. That sword strike just now had indeed frightened him. They did not expect the first heavenly executioner to be so crazy that he would activate a Daelord's strength at all costs. However, it was obvious that the first heavenly executioner's injuries were so severe that even after activating a secret technique, he had triggered a backlash from his injuries after unleashing a sword strike. "Heh, do you dare take another sword strike from me?" The first heavenly executioner chuckled. He then raised his hand and activated his Emperor's Chi. Taoist patterns intertwined wildly in the void, and the iron sword in his hand let out a crisp sword hum. With a slash of the sword, a beam of sword light instantly cut through the void and swept towards the 7 gods with a tyrannical aura of destruction. Not good. Shield of Gluttony. The god of gluttony took a step forward and took out a huge black iron shield. There was a bloody mouth carved on the iron shield, but when the sword chi collided with the iron shield, the energy was continuously devoured by the shield. This was the god of gluttony's divine weapon. Unfortunately, the power of this sword strike was too terrifying. After absorbing more than half of the sword chi, the divine weapon began to crack. What? The god of gluttony's pupils shrank. With a loud bang, the divine weapon shield shattered, and the terrifying sword chi that poured out rushed out. The god of gluttony bore the brunt of the attack and died on the spot. The other 6 gods resisted with all their might and barely managed to block the remaining sword chi. They then looked at the first heavenly executioner with lingering fear. "You're indeed the first heavenly executioner. You're so badly injured but you can still forcefully exert such power. How terrifying. It's a pity that you've still lost this battle." The god of pride sneered as he looked at the first heavenly executioner, whose aura was rapidly weakening and whose flame of life was like a candle in the wind. "My king, we're useless. We've let you down." The first heavenly executioner murmured as he looked at the sky. The injuries in his body were rapidly devouring his life force, and he was no longer able to fight. The people of Black Heaven sect also noticed this. The hope that they had painstakingly birthed was replaced by despair. If the sect leader was here, he would definitely have a way. Elder Rian murmured. Lan Yu, Divine Phoenix Lil Red, and the others straightened their bodies and looked at the gods. They did not back down at all and were ready to fight to the death. The god of pride saw this and scoffed. "A bunch of ant-like humans. Do you really think you can go against the gods?" As he said that, he slammed his palm onto the barrier that the Earth Guardians had constructed. The barrier shattered with a loud bang. The thick Earth Guardians were sent flying. Then, an extremely terrifying divine power burst out from the god of pride and shrouded the people of Black Heaven sect. The powerful divine power pressed down on them like 100,000 mountains, causing their bodies to weaken and they could not help but fall to the ground. "All of you are only fit to crawl on the ground and wait for death," the god of pride said calmly. Suddenly his eyes narrowed. There were still a few figures standing proudly at the scene. Their unyielding silhouettes were like towering mountains that could support the heavens and the earth. They were Lan Yu, Lil Red, Murong Xian, Gu Linglong and the others. "Oh, you're still trying to resist? Get down." The god of pride snorted coldly and increased his aura once again. Murong Xian's knees immediately weakened, and he could not help but fall to the ground. In the end, he growled and retrieved a long spear from the ground. Using the spear as a base, he stabbed the tip of the spear into his shoulder and held it against his body. Bullsh *T, I'm going to stand here no matter what. Ignorant humans, you're asking for death. Beside the god of pride, the other gods could not help but look grim and were about to activate their auras as well. However, at that moment, a sword's hum suddenly rang out and spread throughout the entire Black Heaven sect. That vast divine power aura was instantly swept away. Chapter 806. The crisp sound of a sword rang out and echoed throughout the Black Heaven sect. The boundless divine aura was instantly swept away. This sound, could it be? Lan Yu, Murong Xian, and the others turned towards the direction of the Longevity Hall excitedly. There was only one sword in the Longevity Hall, the Descendant Self Sword. What's with that sword cry? It can break through the divine aura. There's a Taoist weapon in this hall. Judging from its aura, it's not an ordinary Taoist weapon. There's such a treasure in this sect? The deities looked towards the direction of the Longevity Hall in shock. Inside the Longevity Hall, a white jade-like sword was trembling on the shelf. It had been 3 years. It had been 3 whole years. It finally sensed that familiar aura. The Descendant Self Sword could not contain its excitement. It flew out of the Longevity Hall and hovered in the air, waiting for someone to come. The body of the sword was jade-like and had Taoist markings on it. The sword chi was naturally bright and dazzling. It really is the Descendant Self Sword. Lan Yu and the others were even more excited. What a great human Taoist weapon. When a god saw this Tao artifact, he couldn't help but fly up and try to grab Kun Wu. Don't touch it with your filthy hands. A cold voice was heard. The deity who tried to attack was instantly frozen in midair. An invisible force then crushed him into a cloud of blood mist. Everyone's eyes narrowed as they looked towards the source of the voice. They saw a man dressed in white with waist-length black hair. He was so handsome that he looked like a celestial being. He stepped on the air and looked at the surrounding deities as if they were nothing. He walked straight towards the Descendant Self Sword. Long time no see, my good friend. Chu Kuangren slowly reached out and grabbed the hilt of the Descendant Self Sword. Suddenly, the sword let out a high-pitched cry that echoed through the clouds. The majestic sword aura swept out in all directions like a tidal wave, covering millions of kilometers. All the swords at the scene trembled as if they were welcoming the King of Swords. You look excited. I wonder how much stronger you've become after your reforging. Chu Kuangren stroked the blade with his finger and pointed it at the deities. Why don't I use this deity to test my strength? Chu Kuangren, you finally appeared. Now the gods are here. You and the Black Heaven sect will all die. The moment Demon Emperor Pride saw Chu Kuangren, he could not help but feel a surge of hatred in his heart. He took a step forward and said loudly. Chu Kuangren deflected the tip of his blade. A wisp of sword energy flew out. Demon Emperor Pride didn't even have time to react before he was sliced in half. What a fast sword chi. Pride God and the others couldn't help but narrow their eyes. That sword was so fast that they didn't even have time to save Demon Emperor Pride. Fellow Chu, he's actually not dead? The Heaven Executioners were also confused. It wasn't just them. Far away in the outer realm, the Heavenly Yellow Taoist and the others had also sensed Chu Kuangren's aura, and they were all shocked. Chu Kuangren, why isn't he dead? How could this be? The mysterious Yellow Path Master's face was extremely gloomy. Variable. Chu Kuangren's appearance at this time was undoubtedly a variable. Damn it. How could this fellow be so lucky? So many Tao Lords had died in the battle of the Blood God Mountain, so why was he still alive? In the Black Heaven sect. Chu Kuangren's sudden appearance made the deity's expressions turn grim. This person is the Black Heaven Divine sect's true Black God. This is the person who treated us as false deities. Back then, the Myriad Deity sect was stopped from spreading their faith to us by this person. We must not let this person live. Kill. The deities attacked. Chu Kuangren's figure suddenly disappeared and reappeared in front of a deity. He raised his hand and slashed out with his sword. That deity did not have the slightest resistance and was instantly torn in half by the Descendant Self Sword. Amidst the blood mist, Chu Kuangren moved again. His figure was like a ghost, constantly changing among the deities. All they could see were rays of sword rays flashing one after another. Chu Kuangren's sword was very elegant, and it was neither fast nor slow. However, the deities had no way to avoid it. Every time the sword ray flashed, a deity's life would be taken away. In just a few breaths' time, dozens of gods were chopped like vegetables. Some were beheaded, while others were chopped at the waist. The deities could not help but feel a chill run down their spines. Too weak. I can't even kill a pig or a dog so easily. Are there no stronger deities for me to test my sword skills on? Chu Kuangren's voice rang out. The deities were so angry that their faces turned green. Killing a pig or a dog is not that easy. Does that not mean that they are worse than a pig or a dog? How dare you? The crocodile deity wielded an axe and swung it at Chu Kuangren. The powerful axe strike was enough to split an ocean apart. Chu Kuangren raised his sword to block the attack. With a clang, the sword and axe collided, sparks flew, and a sword ray flashed across the void. Chu Kuangren flashed past the crocodile deity and saw the axe in its hand break into two. Then the crocodile's head fell to the ground with a bang, kicking up a cloud of dust and divine blood. All the gods sucked in a breath of cold air, their gazes filled with shock. A higher deity was killed with a single sword attack. How terrifying was this person's strength? The heavenly executioners knew how strong Chu Kuangren was. He was a person who could kill the Blood Tribe Blood King, who was also a Tao Lord. Killing a few higher deities was like child's play to him. However, they were still shocked. They could tell that Chu Kuangren did not use any Emperor's Qi or any other energy at all. Instead, he was like a mortal, wielding a sword and using all kinds of sword techniques to kill the deities. Just as Chu Kuangren said, he was testing his sword. He was using the deities to test the sharpness of the descendant self-sword. Even if he doesn't use the Emperor's Qi, he can casually kill gods with just a Taoist weapon. Just how terrifying is his physical strength and understanding of swordsmanship? 7 executioners could not help but gulp and say, "You can easily break a higher deity weapon. Descendant self, you've grown a lot stronger." Chu Kuangren looked at the descendant self sword in his hand and chuckled. The descendant self sword trembled slightly as if it was proud of itself. "Next, let's try my sword Qi," Chu Kuangren said. The Emperor's Qi within his body surged as he raised his sword and swung it. Sword Qi slashed across the sky, carrying with it a storm that could annihilate everything. Dozens of deities were killed on the spot. Tao Lord? He's definitely a Tao Lord. Pride deity's expression changed. He exchanged glances with envy, avarice, and the other deities beside him. Then, without hesitation, he turned around and fled. "Where do you think you're going?" Chu Kuangren said indifferently. The Emperor's Qi and Taoist patterns intertwined, and the mini-world instantly shrouded the entire place. All the deities felt a terrifying and boundless pressure shrouding them, and they were all pressed to the ground. Chu Kuangren's expression was as cold as ice. "In front of me, all of you can only lie on the ground and wait for your deaths. Dream on." This kind of pressure. How is this possible? Pride deity could not believe it. Even a Lord deity would not be this terrifying. This mini-world. The first heavenly executioner looked at the Taoist patterns in the void and could not help but feel an inexplicable sense of familiarity. What happened next shocked him even more. With a single thought, 10,000 blades created disaster. Chu Kuangren channeled his thoughts and countless spiritual qi converged into the blades. The heavenly executioner's expressions changed when the blades converged. The Tao Lords who were far away were also dumbfounded. Chapter 807. With a single thought, 10,000 swords create an army disaster. Tens of thousands of spiritual qi converged into soldiers. Countless swords soared into the sky and locked onto all the deities present. When the deities saw this scene, their eyes were filled with unprecedented fear. It's him. He's back. In the long history of the deities, they had dominated everything and were never afraid of anyone. However, one person had given them the greatest humiliation. The human ruler. This is the human ruler's cultivation technique. Pride deity was so scared that his face turned pale. In the past, when the human ruler single-handedly killed his way up to the godly mountain, he had taken a look at him from afar. That person's figure had always been engraved in his heart, becoming a nightmare that he could never forget. Now that figure was slowly overlapping with the Chu Kuangren before him. In the outer realm, the Tao Lords were all confused. What was going on? What did they just see? It's the king's mystery. That's the king's mystery. How did Chu Kuangren get it? The crowd was puzzled. The mystery was the ultimate interpretation of one's own Tao. Everyone had their own unique mystery that could not be passed on to others. However, Chu Kuangren had used the human ruler's mystery. That had broken their preconceptions. Could he be the king? That absurd thought suddenly popped up in everyone's mind. Then they quickly shook their heads in denial. It was impossible. The king was dead, and he had been dead for a long time. However, they could not help but look at Chu Kuangren with anticipation. If he really was the king, if the king could really return, how great would that be? In the Black Heaven sect. With a single thought, Chu Kuangren created an army disaster. With a single thought, tens of thousands of swords whistled towards the deities. Regardless of whether it was a lower god or a higher god, under this power, none of them had any ability to fight back. They were smashed to pieces on the spot. After killing the deities, Chu Kuangren looked up into the sky. His gaze seemed to penetrate through layers of obstacles and reach the outer realm. In the outer realm, the heavenly yellow Tao Lord could not help but shiver when he was stared at by that gaze. At that moment he felt like he was being stared at by the king. Chu Kuangren, who the hell are you? The heavenly yellow Dao Lord gritted his teeth. He now understood that in order to become a king, the Dao Lord was not an obstacle, neither was the heavenly executioner. Only Chu Kuangren was the biggest obstacle standing in his way. If Chu Kuangren did not die, he would not be able to claim the throne. In the Black Heaven sect, Chu Kuangren retracted his gaze and murmured, "He's just a clown. I'll deal with him when the time comes." For now, it was better to reorganize the situation on Firmament Star. After killing the gods, he arrived in front of the first heavenly executioner. He frowned slightly when he noticed that the latter could no longer suppress his injuries. He raised his hand and gathered the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, casting the spring breeze rain technique. An endless stream of life force surged into the other party's body, rapidly healing his injuries. However, the other party's injuries were too severe. Even the powerful effects of the spring breeze and rain art could not completely heal him. Water vapor gather. Chu Kuangren gathered the water chi from the heavens and earth and condensed them into needles. With his peerless medical skills, he pierced the water needles into the first heavenly executioner's body. Soon enough, the man's injuries were healed. The first heavenly executioner was astonished. His injuries were already beyond saving, and he wouldn't be able to live for long. However, Chu Kuangren managed to hang on to his last breath of life force. Although he was still gravely injured, he managed to survive. "Green shirt, you've made quite a mess of yourself." Just as the first heavenly executioner was shocked by Chu Kuangren's medical skills, Chu Kuangren's cold voice rang out. That familiar tone instantly brought him back to ancient times. Green shirt, it had been a long time since he last heard that name. Ever since the king left, he had abandoned the title of Green Shirt and walked the world as the first heavenly executioner. He heard that name again. He stared at Chu Kuangren with reddened eyes. That familiar tone, that same profound Tao. "Welcome back, king." Although he did not have any direct evidence, Green Shirt had a feeling that the person in front of him was the king that he had spent so many years with. "King, it really is the king. The king is back." The other heavenly executioners were also extremely excited. Chu Kuangren glanced at them. After merging with the remnant soul energy of the earth soul and human soul, he had also obtained those 10,000 years of memories. These people were all his former personal guards. Among them, the first heavenly executioner, Green Shirt, had been by his side since before he became a king. "I'm back." Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. Then he looked at the people of the Black Heaven sect and appeared in front of them in a flash. He cast the spring breeze healing technique and healed everyone's injuries. "Brother." The godly phoenix Lil Red was the most excited. She immediately rushed up and hugged Chu Kuangren like a koala bear. "Lil Red, you've grown quite a bit." Chu Kuangren patted Lil Red's head and chuckled. Then he looked at Lan Yu, Elder Rian, Gu Linglong, Murong Xian, and the others and smiled. "Everyone, it's been a while." "Welcome back, sect leader." Elder Rian smiled and bowed in respect. "Welcome back, sect leader." "Welcome back, sect leader." The people of the Black Heaven sect were extremely excited and bowed as well. The haze caused by the deity's arrival was instantly swept away with Chu Kuangren's arrival. That was because their faith had returned. Inside the Longevity Hall, Chu Kuangren, Elder Rian, and the others gathered in the hall. They were cleaning up the aftermath of the battle. Although Chu Kuangren returned in time, coupled with the Heavenly Executioner and the 5 Affinity Shadow Army's resistance, the Black Heaven sect did not suffer many casualties. There were still a few elders and disciples who lost their lives in the battle. However, now was not the time to be sad. This battle was just the beginning. There was not even a single Lord God. The deity's big move was yet to come. However, Chu Kuangren was not worried about this. Since he was back, he would not allow any more casualties. Whether it was the deities or the heavenly yellow Taoist master, he could shoulder all of them. "By the way, Linglong, where have you been?" Chu Kuangren asked curiously. Gu Linglong explained patiently. It turned out that when the heavenly Tao was revived, some of the strong cultivators in the firmament star who had been in hibernation had awakened one after another, and one of them was the heavenly Honorable Dark. This person also had a mysterious underworld Taoist physique. Just like the heavenly executioner, this person was also severely injured during the Battle of Defiance Gods. After many years of hibernation, his injuries did not improve. Sensing that his end was near, he wanted to find a successor and coincidentally met Gu Linglong in the Royal Azure Dynasty. Gu Linglong also had a mysterious underworld Taoist physique, so she brought her along and used a secret technique to pass on her cultivation. Because of that, Gu Linglong quickly broke through and even became an emperor. Not long ago, that heavenly honorable dark had reached his end and passed away. Only then did Gu Linglong return to the firmament star from the 9 heavens. Chu Kuangren could not help but sigh after hearing that. The heavenly executioners in particular were even more emotional. Like that heavenly honorable dark, they were also injured during the Battle of Defiance Gods and had yet to recover. At that thought, their hatred towards the deities deepened. The deities have caused too much damage to the human race. I will never forgive them, let alone work with them. The heavenly yellow Taoist master's actions have tarnished the reputation of the human race. Green Robe said coldly and revealed the heavenly yellow Taoist master's intention to work with the deities. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. I've heard about this from Luo Shui. I'll take care of it. Don't worry. Chapter 808. Somewhere in the void of firmament star. There was a towering divine mountain here, and at the peak of the divine mountain, there was a golden seal. The seal had runes flowing around it, and it shone with a myriad of lights, enveloping the entire divine mountain. It was the human ruler seal. The surging divine power in the divine mountain was sealed by the man ruler seal. Even the god lords in the divine mountain could not come out. This was because the human ruler seal was not only a condensation of human Tao luck, but it was also filled with the power of the heavenly Tao. It was known as the strongest Tao weapon in firmament star. Outside the divine mountain, a person slowly walked in. It was an imposing man in a black robe. He looked at the man ruler seal on the divine mountain with a hint of envy in his eyes. The human ruler's seal is extremely powerful. It will continue to grow stronger as the human race's luck increases. It can be said to be the most mysterious weapon in history. If it wasn't for Tsang, the person who became the leader of the human race back then should have been me. This item should also belong to me. Zhan Xing murmured. The memory of being defeated by Tsang surfaced in his mind. He suppressed his emotions. Unfortunately, Tsang, you died too early. Otherwise, with my current strength, I would have been able to defeat you and wash away my shame. He glanced at the man ruler's seal. Then he took out a white rune with Tao patterns intertwining inside and his psyche power circulating within it. This was one of the runes left behind by the human king. In the past, the human king could be said to be an all-rounder. He was proficient in formations, alchemy, artifact forging, and even runes. In fact, he was the one who had created all of these methods, and then popularized them throughout the human race. It was precisely because of these means that the human race could become strong enough to rival the gods who had hundreds of thousands of years of history in a short period of 10,000 years. And because of this, Tsang was known as the greatest king of the human race. This is one of the earliest runes Tsang created when he created the Tao of Runes. It contains his power. Hopefully, it can trigger a reaction from the human ruler seal. Slashing Star sent the rune in his hand out. The runes exploded in the air, and countless rays of golden light flowed. The Tao patterns interweaved and turned into thousands of weapons that blasted towards the human ruler seal. The man ruler seal sensed a familiar energy fluctuation, and its resistance was naturally weakened, allowing it to withstand this attack. After the explosion, the entire divine mountain shook violently. The myriad of lights swayed. Zhan Xing seized the opportunity. A large golden sword appeared in his hand. With a furious roar, he combined his chi refinement and divine power to the extreme. Die. The golden sword chi swept out along with the storm. The seal formed by the human ruler seal was broken. In an instant, the divine power aura contained in the sacred mountain swept out in a frenzy, charging at the entire space. The void shattered and the sacred mountain reappeared in the firmament star. Countless experts sensed it. Some of the sealed sovereigns could sense the aura of the divine mountain as well. Haha, the divine mountain has reappeared. The divine masters are no longer bound, and the sacred mountain has reappeared. The seal set by the human race won't be able to suppress us for much longer. Human race, just you wait. The divine power aura of the divine mountain spread out, and some of the chief gods who were closer to it felt their divine power increase. They had actually broken the seal in one go. The divine master sat on the throne in the palace. After sensing that the seal of the human monarch seal had been broken, he slowly stood up and looked at Zhan Xing, who was at the foot of the mountain. The aura of a mix of human and divine. You are the son of King Kong. The divine master still had some impression of this human monarch's son. He was surprised when he sensed his opponent's power. You're very strong, not much weaker than Tsang back then. Zhan Xing said, Tsang has been dead for many years. Times are different now. Divine Master, please cooperate with us. Cooperation? Interesting. A playful smile appeared on the Divine Master's face. Far away, inside the Black Heaven sect's boundary, Chu Kuangren had also sensed the aura of the sacred mountain. The seal of the human ruler seal has been broken. These deities are more capable than I thought. There's no hurry. Let's wait a little longer. He was waiting for an opportunity. It would be too troublesome to find them one by one. What he wanted was to capture them all at once. Let's do the lucky draw first. Chu Kuangren murmured. He opened the fantasy roulette and began the lucky draw. Congratulations, host. You've obtained the godly technique, Honorable Emperor's Sword Art. The godly technique, Honorable Emperor's Sword Art. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. He immediately retrieved the cultivation technique. It was a powerful sword technique. Although it was not as profound as the Immortal Star Physique or the 9 Transformation 3 Primordial Soul Refinement Technique, however, it was an offensive immortal technique. An immortal technique that was more powerful than the illusory 7 Emotions Art. It seems that God-tiered techniques correspond to the immortal level. However, God-tiered techniques differ in strength. Although the Honorable Emperor's Sword Art is powerful, its growth potential is far inferior to the Immortal Star Physique and the 9 Transformation 3 Primordial Soul Refinement Technique. However, it's still very useful to me at this stage. Chu Kuangren thought to himself. He spent the rest of his time learning this immortal technique. While he was in closed-door meditation, the overgods broke their seals one by one and gathered at the sacred mountain as if they were preparing for something. On this day, Chu Kuangren suddenly sensed something. Someone is destroying the sealing sword formation that I've left in the Emperor's path. In the past, he had left a sealing sword formation in the black soil where the burial Emperor's coffin was located, so that the burial Emperor's coffin could no longer come out to harm the people. However, someone was destroying the sword formation now. With my current strength, it's not difficult to save the Chaos Taoist Master. I might as well settle this matter today. Chu Kuangren murmured. He cast the spatial conveyor technique and disappeared on the spot. The Emperor's Path, Black Soil. Recently, with the help of the Oceanic Deity and the other deities, he had finally broken out of his seal and arrived at the Black Soil to retrieve his divine weapon, the Burial Emperor's coffin. However, he realized that there was a sword formation around the Burial Emperor's coffin. This must be a sword formation set up by Chu Kuangren. That D*Ned human has disgraced me time and time again. I must find a chance to skin him alive. The underworld god snorted coldly and said. Then he looked at the black soil in front of him. Now he decided to deal with the Chaos Taoist Master first. The Chaos Taoist Master's strength among the humans is terrifying. If he had not exhausted himself chasing after the deities back then, I wouldn't have sealed him into the Burial Emperor's coffin so easily. This time I must get rid of this threat once and for all. The underworld deity thought to himself as his divine power erupted. Under the impact of the divine power, the sealing sword formation was instantly broken. The Burial Emperor's coffin broke out of the ground. The pitch-black coffin trembled as it sensed the arrival of its master. The underworld deity raised his hand and caressed the black coffin, injecting his divine power into it in an attempt to refine the Chaos Taoist Master inside. Die. However, at that moment, a sword chi pierced through the air and landed on the Burial Emperor's coffin. With a boom, the Burial Emperor's coffin was sent flying. Who's there? The underworld deity's expression changed slightly as he looked into the distance. He saw a young man walking in the air. His white robes were untainted by even a speck of dust, and a gorgeous white jade longsword hung on his waist. It's you, Chu Kuangren? The underworld deity smiled when he saw who it was. Ha, I was just about to look for you. I didn't expect you to come knocking on my door. Now that my true body has broken the seal, let's see how you're going to fight me. A powerful surge of divine power erupted from the underworld deity's body. The entire Emperor's path trembled violently. Countless living beings prostrated themselves on the ground. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren stood in the air with a calm expression. I killed you once back then, and now you're back to clamoring in front of me after being resurrected. You really don't learn from your mistakes. Oh well, it's not that hard to kill you again. Chapter 809. When Chu Kuangren was still a human king, he had once slain an underworld deity. He had even absorbed and refined the other party's godhead. However, the underworld deity did not know about this. To him, the human king and Chu Kuangren were two completely different people. Even if you beat him to death, he would never associate the two of them together. When the underworld god heard that Chu Kuangren had killed her before, she could not help but be stunned for a moment before she sneered. Chu Kuangren, the ones you've killed before were merely clones of divine power. How can they compare to my true self? This time I'll show you the power of a chief god. The god of the underworld roared, and his divine power surged out in a frenzy, transforming into a pitch-black gate in the void that was carved with all kinds of Azura demons. Nether god divine ability, Gate of Hell. As the door opened, countless Azura evil spirits rushed out from within. It's this stupid door again. Chu Kuangren curled his lips, but the descendant's self-sword at his waist did not move. Instead, the Emperor's chi circulated behind him, and the majestic 10,000 Taoist avatar formed. Presently he was already a Tao Lord, and his Tao had risen to the extremes of the Tao Lord realm. So, when he executed this technique now, its might couldn't be compared to the past at all, and it was like the difference between an infant and an adult. How could this be? The Nether God was stunned. The power of the 10,000 images was just too terrifying. Even he, an overgod, felt his scalp tingle. How long has it been? How did this guy improve to such an extent? When Xiao Qian's incarnations met earlier, Xiao Qian had only just advanced to Martial Emperor. Now, he had directly surpassed the Celestial Sovereign level and become a Tao Lord. Others are progress. However, why did he feel that Chu Kuangren was evolving? There's also this Tao aura. Why is it so familiar? The Nether God swallowed. He sensed a very familiar aura from Chu Kuangren's Taoist body. It was a nightmare that was engraved in the depths of his memory and could not be erased. Human King. This person's Tao was exactly the same as that of a human king. That's impossible. How could there be two completely identical Taos in this world? What's your relationship with the human king? The underworld god was a little frightened. It was not clear whether it was because of Chu Kuangren's strength or because his Taoist Tao had triggered the fear in the depths of her heart. If I said that I am a sovereign personage, would you believe me? Chu Kuangren chuckled. Before he went to the ancient era, his Tao of invincibility was only at the perfect level. However, in the long river of time, he had witnessed the development of the human race and understood the true meaning of self-improvement and invincibility. His Tao had also been elevated. The path of self-improvement and invincibility. This was Chu Kuangren's Tao, and it was also the human king's Tao. Impossible, impossible, that person died a long time ago. The underworld god shook his head frantically. He roared as he channeled his soul energy, turning it into thousands of Ashura evil spirits that charged towards Chu Kuangren. Break. Chu Kuangren let out a soft roar and the 10,000 Taoist avatar unleashed a punch. The fist energy was filled with vibrant colors and contained the power of various Taoist physiques. In the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of Ashura evil ghosts were destroyed by the fist wind, and the majestic fist energy directly slammed into the door of hell. With just a single punch, the door of hell collapsed and transformed into countless fragments, and it even blasted the god of the underworld flying. Puff! The Nether God vomited blood, her face filled with horror. Die. Language of the Nether God. The Nether God went crazy and activated her divine power to the maximum. The Nether God unleashed his second divine ability, and strange syllables suddenly rang in the void, attacking Chu Kuangren's soul energy. However, this divine ability was still useless. To the Nether God, Chu Kuangren was like his nemesis. They had fought against each other a few times, but each time, the Nether God was completely suppressed by Chu Kuangren. He could not resist at all. There was no one else who could do something like this for a Lord God. Emperor Burial Coffin, come to me. The Emperor Burial Coffin roared. The Emperor Burial Coffin that was sent flying immediately flew back. When the coffin opened, a terrifying suction force enveloped Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren did not resist and was immediately sucked in. Haha, this Emperor Burial Coffin of mine can refine anything. Even a deity stronger than me will definitely die if they enter it. Kid, you can die together with the Chaos Taoist Master in there. The Nether God could not help but laugh. He then continued to channel his divine power into the Emperor Burial Coffin, pushing the refining power to the maximum. Inside the Emperor Burial Coffin. It was Chu Kuangren's second time here. Ignoring the surging refining power around him, he took a step forward and stood before the Chaos Taoist Master. The Chaos Taoist Master's soul was already extremely weak, and his physical body was also gradually disintegrating due to the refinement of the Nether God's divine power. After holding on for so long, I might die here. The Chaos Taoist Master sighed. If he did not give up on his cultivation, he might have been able to hold on for a few more years. However, he did not regret it. Although he was going to die, he had used his cultivation to create an unprecedented peerless genius for the human race. He believed that in time, that person would become a pillar of support for the human race. I wonder how much that person has grown. The Chaos Taoist master murmured. Bastard. As his consciousness blurred, the Chaos Taoist master heard a voice. Was it an auditory hallucination? Yes, it must be an auditory hallucination. Other than the king, who else would dare to call him a bastard? The Chaos Taoist master thought back to the time when he had yet to embark on the path of cultivation. He was just a small fry on the streets. Then, there was one time when he had his eyes on a luxuriously dressed young man on the streets. He wanted to steal that person's wallet to treat his brother's illness. However, he did not expect that one theft would change his entire life. He was caught by that person, but that person did not punish him. Instead, that person helped him to treat his brother and taught them cultivation techniques. The Chaos Taoist master could still remember what that person said to him. You're a man with an indomitable spirit. Little bastard, you're very talented. In time, you'll definitely become a pillar of the human race. Don't keep doing these shady things on the streets. It's embarrassing. That person was half reprimanding and half encouraging. It was the first time in his life that the Chaos Taoist master felt recognized. From then on, the Chaos Taoist master embarked on a path that he had never imagined. That was how he became the famous Chaos Taoist master. It was only later that he found out that the young man was the king of the human race. Bastard, wake up. The Chaos Taoist master felt the voice in his ears getting clearer. An invisible force was channeled into his body, restoring his consciousness. Damn, other than the king, who else would dare to call me a bastard? The Chaos Taoist master slowly regained consciousness and glared at the person in front of him. It's you? Why are you here again, kid? The Chaos Taoist master could not help but look at Chu Kuangren in surprise. He had even temporarily forgotten that Chu Kuangren had called him a bastard. Kid. Chu Kuangren frowned when he heard the way the Chaos Taoist master addressed him. Before he became the king, he did not mind calling him that. But now it sounded so awkward. Not a single human in the firmament star dared to call him that. Forget it. Chu Kuangren shook his head and did not mind. I'm here to save you. Save me? Yes. Chu Kuangren activated his mind power and the blood-colored light pillar that was sealing his limbs instantly shattered. Then, he raised his hand to gather the Emperor's Qi. Ultimate Technique Heaven-Earth Reversal. With a punch, the ultimate technique of ultimate technique was unleashed. Coupled with the ultimate Emperor's Qi and the ultimate Taoist, the three ultimate techniques converged to form a monstrous force that was never seen before. The fist energy surged like starlight and landed on the burying Emperor's coffin. The Taoist patterns within the burying Emperor's coffin instantly shattered, and countless cracks appeared on the surface of the coffin. With a loud explosion, the coffin was completely shattered. Chapter 8:10. In the black soil of the Emperor's Road, the underworld deity was channeling his divine power to use the burial Emperor's coffin's refining power to refine Chu Kuangren and the Chaos Taoist master. However, just as he thought that victory was within his grasp, a seemingly apocalyptic energy suddenly erupted from the burial Emperor coffin. Then, countless cracks appeared on the coffin. How is this possible? The Nether God's expression changed drastically. With a loud bang, the burying Emperor coffin shattered into countless pieces. Boundless energy gushed out and blasted the god of the underworld away. Two streams of light shot out from the shattered Emperor burying coffin. It was Chu Kuangren, the Chaos Taoist master. The Chaos Taoist master was dumbfounded as if he was still immersed in some kind of shock. He stared at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. What did he just see? The ultimate Tao. And it was the ultimate path of a king. Also, did Chu Kuangren just call him a hooligan? Since ancient times, only the king had dared to call him that. What was going on? Chu Kuangren was the king? The Chaos Tao master was dumbfounded. However, the god of the underworld's condition was similar to his. As one of the strongest existences among the gods, the god of the underworld's life divine weapon, the burying Emperor coffin, was extremely strong and indestructible. Even the leader of the gods would not be able to destroy it easily. However, Chu Kuangren had destroyed it all. How did he grow to such a level in just a few years? Let's go. Without any hesitation, the Nether God turned around and fled. His divine abilities were useless, and his divine weapon was destroyed as well. In front of Chu Kuangren, there was nothing he could do. If he stayed any longer, only death awaited him. Where can you run to? Chu Kuangren chuckled. His mini-world transformed into chains and shot out at an incredible speed. In the blink of an eye, the chains had bound the underworld god. With a thought, thousands of spiritual chi condensed into a weapon and locked onto him. With a single thought, 10,000 blades create a calamity of soldiers. The Chaos Taoist master could not help but murmur when he saw Chu Kuangren's thoughts. The confusion in his eyes deepened. Wasn't this the mystery of being a king? Boom, boom, boom. The spirit weapons were like rain, instantly blasting the Chaos Tao master into pieces. A godhead floated in the air. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and grabbed it. With this godhead, my soul power will be able to increase by another level. I might even be able to condense a human soul again. Chu Kuangren smiled in satisfaction. The Lord of the Underworld was really pitiful. Not only was his ability countered by Chu Kuangren, but his godhead was also refined by Chu Kuangren twice in a row. It was simply an EXP baby. Chu Kuangren shook his head and looked at the Chaos Taoist master who was still in a daze. Alright, you've regained your senses. Who are you? Chaos Tao master asked doubtfully. Who am I? That's a good question. I'm Chu Kuangren, but I'm also the human Emperor Azure. Let's see who you're more willing to take me for, you bastard. Chu Kuangren chuckled. You really are the reincarnation of the king. Chaos Tao master said excitedly. This was the most logical explanation he could come up with. How could a peerless figure like the king die so easily? He must have used some kind of secret method to reincarnate. He was Chu Kuangren. Otherwise, why would he feel a sense of familiarity when he first saw Chu Kuangren? He was even willing to give up his cultivation to help Chu Kuangren forge the ultimate emperor essence. That must be his instincts for a king. The more the Chaos Tao master thought about it, the more excited he became. Chaos Tao master looked at Chu Kuangren with a fervent gaze. He immediately knelt on the ground. Welcome back, my king. I didn't think I'd be able to meet you again in my lifetime. Reincarnation? Chu Kuangren rubbed his chin. That was a good excuse. He did not have to explain too much either. Alright, it's settled then. Chu Kuangren followed the Chaos Tao master's wishes and silently admitted that he was the reincarnation of the Azure. He said, get up. The human tribe still has many things waiting for us to do and they still need you. My king, I'm afraid I won't be able to help you now that my cultivation has been crippled. The Chaos Tao master smiled bitterly. Your cultivation may be gone, but your Taoist physique is still there. As long as your heart is not crippled, it's only a matter of time before you regain your cultivation, Chu Kuangren said with his hands behind his back. My king is right. The Chaos Tao master's eyes were filled with determination. He looked at Chu Kuangren with admiration and admiration. He was even more certain that Chu Kuangren was the king. Only the king could guide him. He was like a ray of light in the darkness, so bright and gentle that people could not help but want to follow him. Let's go. Chu Kuangren grabbed the Chaos Tao master and enveloped him in Emperor's Qi. Then he cast the spatial conveyor technique and instantly returned to the Black Heaven sect. He asked Elder Rian to arrange a place for the Chaos Tao master to stay. Then he sent a message to Luo Shui. When she learned that the Chaos Tao master had been rescued, Luo Shui could not contain her joy and wanted to rush to the Black Heaven sect immediately. However, as the great general of the fort, she could not leave her post easily. Fortunately, the Blood Tribe had not made any moves recently, so she could make a trip to the Firmament Star after making some arrangements. Besides, she also wanted to know what was going on with Chu Kuangren. Not only her, but the Dharma Taoist master and the Scarlet Sun Taoist could not contain their curiosity either. The few of them agreed to come to the Firmament Star as well. In the Black Heaven sect, Elder Rian looked at the two men and one woman in front of her and felt cold sweat dripping down her forehead. She knew that aside from Chu Kuangren, the Black Heaven sect could not afford to offend any one of these three people. However, when she thought of Chu Kuangren, she regained her confidence. The three of you, the sect leader is currently in closed-door meditation. He mentioned that the Black Heaven sect will have an esteemed guest named Luo Shui to visit. May I know who it is? Elder Rian stepped forward and asked. As for Chu Kuangren, he was currently in closed-door meditation to refine the underworld god's godhead. I am Luo Shui. Since Brother Chu is in closed-door meditation, we shall not disturb you. May I know where my honorable master Chaotic Chaos is now? Luo Shui said. Everyone please follow me. Elder Rian brought the few of them to meet Chaotic Chaos. Honorable master. Luo Shui was very excited when he saw Chaotic Chaos. Brother Chaotic, how have you been? Long time no see. The Dharma Taoist master and the Scarlet Sun Taoist were delighted too. Honorable master, your cultivation level? Luo Shui noticed the abnormality in the Chaos Dao Master and could not help but worry. It's fine. Chaotic Chaos shook his head and smiled. He briefly explained what happened to him and then looked at Luo Shui and the others. Thank you for your hard work all these years. He had heard about the blood tribe from Chu Kuangren. Unfortunately, he was sealed in the burying emperor's coffin at that time and could not do his part. He was very regretful about that. By the way, Honorable Master, do you know about Brother Chu? Luo Shui asked curiously. Luo Shui Myriad's Scarlet Son, I'm afraid we can no longer treat Brother Chu as a junior anymore. Because he's the king. The Chaos Dao Master said solemnly. What? How is that possible? The Myriad's Dao Master and the Scarlet Sun Daoist gasped. The Chaos Dao Master is right. The king is the king. We didn't know it before, but we can still treat him as a junior. However, from now on we must still treat him with respect. At that moment, Qing Yi and the other heavenly executioners walked over. Qing Yi knew that Chu Kuangren did not care about such formalities, but Qing Yi could not help it. In his opinion, the king was too lenient, and that would easily give rise to rebellious thoughts. For example, the black-yellow Daoist. Chapter 8:11. After receiving confirmation from the heavenly executioners, the Dharma Daoist Master, the Scarlet Sun Daoist Master, and Luo Shui finally accepted the truth. After the initial shock, they could not help but rejoice. This is great. Our king is back. Now that the human race has him, let's see who dares to be so presumptuous, especially that heavenly yellow Daoist master. I'd like to see if he can still be so arrogant in front of our king. The Dharma Daoist master snorted coldly. At that moment, it was as if they had found their backbone. Knowing that Chu Kuangren was the king, they were no longer in a hurry to return to the outer domain. Instead, they stayed in the Black Heaven sect, hoping to meet Chu Kuangren when he came out of his closed-door meditation. Of course, they did not just sit around and do nothing. In the Black Heaven sect, they took on the role of elders, preaching to the disciples and guiding them in their cultivation. They did not look like the high and mighty Taoist masters at all. To them, this was the king's sect. They could do whatever they wanted, but they would not dare to do so here. Lan Yu, Murong Xian, and the others seized this rare opportunity to absorb the Taoist master's cultivation experiences with all their might. At the same time, they also asked about Chu Kuangren out of curiosity. They knew that the king that the Dharma Taoist master and the others mentioned was their sect leader, but they did not know the reason behind it. Senior Dharma, what did the human king do in the past? On this day. As soon as the Dharma Taoist master finished his lecture, a disciple asked curiously. All right then, I'll tell you about some of the glorious deeds of our king. I'll let you all know how amazing your sect leader is. The Dharma Taoist master cleared his throat and said. As he recounted his glorious deeds, the disciples felt like they had returned to ancient times, witnessing how the human king was like a ray of light in the dark ages of the human race, illuminating the path for the human race. Inventing alchemy, qi refinement, defeating the Star Slayer tribe, battling the lords, becoming a king, setting foot on the godly mountain, battling the godly lords, building a kingdom. Everyone was overwhelmed with emotions when they heard this, and all of them were extremely excited. I didn't know the sect leader was so amazing in his past life. No wonder the sect leader is so outstanding. Yeah, the way I see it, our sect leader is no weaker than the human king back then. The Black Heaven sect is what it is today because of the sect leader. Yes, no matter if it's the human king or the sect leader, they are both people that we admire the most. But now that I heard that they are actually the same person, I feel that I admire the sect leader even more. The disciples of the Black Heaven sect were in a heated discussion. Their admiration for Chu Kuangren had reached an unimaginable level. Seeing this, the Tao Master of Myriad Laws could not help but shake his head and sigh. As expected of the king. No matter where he is, he will always be the center of attention. 10,000 arts, come here. At this moment, Luo Shui suddenly sent a message. The Tao Master of Myriad Arts stood up and went to the residence of the Tao Master of Chaos. The few of them were now gathered together, and there was one more Tao Master. The strongest Tao Lord of the Firmament Star's demonic tribe, Hao Yu. Tao Lord Bright Moon, why are you here? I heard from Luo Shui that human king has returned. Hao Yu said lightly. Yes. 10,000 Arts sect slightly nodded. Upon hearing this, Hao Yue revealed a look of reminiscence in her eyes. Even though she was of the fiend race, she deeply respected a sovereign personage. Originally, she had no intention of interfering with the internal affairs of the human race. However, now that she knew that the human king had returned, she changed her mind. The heavenly yellow Tao Lord and his cronies will sign a treaty with the deities at the godly mountain. When that time comes, the deities will be granted the right to spread their faith among the humans. In exchange, the deities will provide assistance to the heavenly yellow Tao Lord in conquering the outer universe civilization, Bright Moon Tao Lord said. Upon hearing this news, the Tao Master of Myriad Law's expression sank. The heavenly yellow Tao Lord is really daring. What right does he have to represent the entire human race? As long as the human king doesn't appear, the heavenly yellow Tao Lord is currently the strongest person in the human race. In addition to the dozens of Tao Lords standing by his side, he can be said to be the sole ruler of the human race now, Bright Moon Tao Lord said. What's the attitude of the fiend race? The fiend race initially did not want to interfere with the internal affairs of the human race, but with the deities and the heavenly yellow Tao Lord joining forces, it's hard to guarantee that they won't attack the fiend race next. Therefore I choose to help you now, Hao Yue said. A wise move. The Tao Master of Myriad Laws nodded slightly. Previously he was very dissatisfied with Bright Moon Tao Lord's ambiguous attitude. Now that he was willing to help them, the grudge in his heart was instantly reduced. Come, let's go to the godly mountain. Where's the human king? The king will be the last one to appear. The Tao Master of Myriad Laws said. Bright Moon Tao Lord was speechless. This isn't an opera. Ahem, the king is now in closed-door cultivation to refine the underworld god's godhead. It'll probably take a few days. The Tao Master of Myriad Laws coughed twice and said. There's no need for that. Let's go together. An indifferent voice was heard. Chu Kuangren walked out from the void. Godly mountain. The place where the deities resided. Today both the humans and deities had gathered here. Among them, the human race was led by the heavenly yellow Tao Lord, while the deities were led by the Lord of Gods. It was worth mentioning that outside of these two forces, there was also a large number of myriad deity sects disciples, and their leader was the Slayer Star, the former human god's son. These people could be said to be the most powerful beings in Firmament Star, and this meeting would also determine the future of the entire Firmament Star. I will be the witness for the humans and the deities to sign the Human God Treaty. The treaty will last for the next 100,000 years. The Slayer Star stepped forward and said. After he finished speaking, the heavenly yellow Tao Lord and the Lord of Gods simultaneously channeled their emperor's qi and divine power into the void. Suddenly, countless golden runes appeared in the void. That was the Human God Treaty. Once this treaty is signed, anyone who disobeys will be punished by both the humans and the deities. The Slayer Star said. He would be the keeper and executor of this treaty. And this was a great power. It meant that in the situation where the humans and the deities were in balance, he, the human god's son, would become a sharp sword hanging over the heads of the humans and the deities. And he had the strength to do so. The deities would gain the right to spread their faith among the humans, and the heavenly yellow Tao Lord would gain the deities' help to increase their combat power in conquering the outer space civilization. The Slayer Star would gain the respect of both the humans and the deities. It was a treaty that would benefit all three parties. Alright, sign your name, Lord of Gods. The heavenly yellow Tao Lord said with a hint of excitement in his eyes. Once this treaty was signed, he would usher in a new era for the humans. It would be an era where humans and deities coexisted, an era that was far more glorious than when the human king was still alive. He would become a greater king than the heavens. The corners of the Lord of God's lips curled up slightly. He raised his hand and sent out a stream of divine power. The divine power landed on the treaty and turned into a single word. Wang. That was the Lord of God's name. Alright, it's your turn. The Lord of Gods looked at the heavenly yellow Tao Lord and said calmly. The heavenly yellow Tao Lord gathered Emperor's qi at his fingertips and was about to sign his name. However, at that moment, a palm qi blasted toward the treaty. The heavenly yellow Tao Lord frowned slightly. The Emperor's qi at his fingertips struck the palm qi. He then looked into the distance and saw a dozen streams of light flying over. They were the Myriad Arts Tao Lord Luo Shui, the Scarlet Sun Tao Lord, the Bright Moon Tao Lord, and a group of heavenly executioners. Even at this time you still want to mess things up. You really don't know what's good for you. The heavenly yellow Tao Lord said with a gloomy expression. He did not understand why these people kept disobeying him. He could have ushered in a new era. Since you've disobeyed me again and again, don't blame me for being merciless. The heavenly yellow Tao Lord's eyes were filled with killing intent. Beside him, the Lord of God said playfully, a few Tao Lords and a few injured and crippled heavenly executioners dare to trespass on my divine mountain. Are the humans so bold now? What if I'm included? Chapter 8:12. What if I join in as well? A cold voice echoed throughout the entire divine mountain. In the air, a handsome figure dressed in white with a long sword hanging from his waist slowly stepped through the air. His aura swept out like a tidal wave, crashing into the entire divine mountain. His aura made the deity's pupils dilate, especially the divine master. He narrowed his eyes with a cold glint in them. This familiar feeling. So you're not dead yet. The ones who knew you best were your enemies. That was true. Before the heavenly yellow path master, Zhan Xing, and the others realized Chu Kuangren's identity, the divine master had already figured it out. Although Chu Kuangren had changed his face, the aura that emanated from Chu Kuangren's body was still etched in the divine master's mind. Since all of you deities have yet to perish, how can I leave before you do? Chu Kuangren chuckled. The heavenly yellow path master and Zhan Xing looked at each other. They did not know how Chu Kuangren knew the divine master. However, the heavenly yellow path master had seen Chu Kuangren use this technique before, so he had a vague guess. Who the hell are you? The heavenly yellow path master looked at Chu Kuangren in shock. Chu Kuangren also looked at the heavenly yellow path master with an icy gaze and said, I heard that you're representing the human race to sign a treaty with the deities. Let me ask you, do you have the right to do so? Why don't I have the right? I'm now the strongest person in the human race. More than half of the human Taoists listen to my orders, and the billions of soldiers in the outer realm will fight for me at my command. I'm asking you, do I have the right? The heavenly yellow path master roared as if he wanted to prove something. The emperor's chi on his body surged as Taoist patterns intertwined and converged to form a huge heavenly golden imperial avatar that emanated a terrifying aura. Chu Kuangren did not answer immediately but chuckled. What are you laughing at? The heavenly yellow path master's expression was extremely gloomy. I'm laughing at you, for not knowing what you're doing. B****. After the heavenly yellow path master guessed Chu Kuangren's identity, the smile on his face deeply pierced his pride. Unable to contain his anger, he activated the divine honorable avatar behind him and unleashed a punch at Chu Kuangren. A violent surge of the power of heaven and earth instantly gushed out. That power was enough to shatter stars. The expressions of the Tao Master of Myriad Laws and the others changed slightly. The Divine Master squinted his eyes and said with interest, Interesting. Apart from Zhan Xing, there is also such an expert in the human clan. With a single thought, all techniques returned to dust. Chu Kuangren gently lifted his hand and unleashed his mind power. A vortex formed in the void. The power of heaven and earth was completely absorbed by the whirlpool, so it could not hurt Chu Kuangren at all. That move of his had shocked everyone present. It was not only Chu Kuangren's strength. What was more important was the significance of that move. This was especially true for the deities. Their pupils were trembling slightly as they stared at Chu Kuangren. They could not help but feel a sense of fear. Human king. No, isn't he dead? But that psychokinesis cultivation method is definitely that of a human king. His Tao is also the same as that of a human king. Who else could it be if not him? To the gods, the human race was not scary. What was scary was a person. That person was a nightmare that they could not get rid of. They originally thought that the shapeshifter had disappeared, but now, the shapeshifter had made a comeback in an even more powerful manner. When I left, you were only a heavenly honorable. Now you've ascended to the peak of the minor Taoist master level. How gratifying. Chu Kuangren said calmly with the tone of an elder. The tranquil cloud Taoist masters behind the heavenly yellow Taoist could not help but tremble. Their faces were filled with excitement and bewilderment. Has that person really returned? Come, take a move from me too. Chu Kuangren gently tapped the heavenly yellow Taoist master with the tip of his finger. His majestic mind power gathered the flames that filled the sky and turned into a golden red fire lotus. The fire lotus was beautiful and dazzling. However, it contained enough power to destroy the world. It was the human king's ultimate technique, one thought, myriad deity calamity fire lotus. The heavenly yellow Taoist master channeled his emperor's chi to its limit, and the heavenly honorable avatar behind him threw a punch at the fire lotus. The Taoist patterns intertwined with the power of heaven and earth spread towards the fire lotus. When the two terrifying forces collided, the entire godly mountain trembled. If not for the godly mountain's unique structure, the power of that attack was enough to destroy everything within 1,000,000 kilometers. The fire lotus overpowered the heavenly yellow Taoist avatar and destroyed the heavenly yellow Taoist avatar. The heavenly yellow Taoist avatar was also affected by the powerful impact. His face turned pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying. The overgods were horrified. The heavenly yellow Taoist master was so powerful that he could be said to be more powerful than any overgod other than the heavenly masters and the space overgods. However, such a powerful being was sent flying by Chu Kuangren with a single move. At that moment, they were even more certain that Chu Kuangren was a human king. Other than a human king, who else in the human tribe would have such strength? Tranquil cloud, blood wave, startling wind. Chu Kuangren's gaze swept across the Taoists behind the heavenly yellow Taoist master and read out their names one by one. Those who made eye contact with him could not help but avert their eyes. It was as if they were ashamed and afraid. I can give you a chance. Make your choice, Chu Kuangren said. The Taoists looked at each other before they walked up to Chu Kuangren and knelt down on one knee looking ashamed. We are ashamed to face our king. Chu Kuangren then looked at the heavenly yellow Taoist master who was not far away. Blood was dripping from the corner of his mouth, and his hair was disheveled. He looked at the scene in front of him with dissatisfaction. You said that you're the strongest human? Yet you can't even take a single move from me. You said that almost half of the human Taoists listen to your orders. Now ask them again if they're willing to follow you. You said that with a single command from you, the billions of soldiers from the outer realm will charge into battle for you? Then why don't you try and see if they're willing to listen to you or if they'll trust me, the number one soldier on the combat leaderboard? Chu Kuangren's words were as cold as knives. Every word he uttered felt like a knife was stabbing into the heavenly yellow Taoist master's heart. After those words, the heavenly yellow Taoist master's face was beyond pale. His Taoist core was on the verge of collapsing. His many years of planning now seemed like a joke. It had completely failed the moment Chu Kuangren returned. That was because he was facing the greatest king of the human tribe. A king who had led the human tribe through the darkest times and brought them back to hope. Against such a king, how could he succeed in replacing him? Chu Kuangren did not even need to do anything. A single word from him was enough to destroy everything he had done so far. Why? You're already dead, so why did you come back? Why did you come back to stop me from leading the human tribe into a new era? The heavenly yellow Taoist master roared at Chu Kuangren like a madman. Chu Kuangren looked at him and said indifferently, the human tribe will walk into a new era, but it will never be with these deities who once kept the human tribe in captivity and treated them like livestock. The first step to walking into a new era is to eradicate internal unstable factors such as you. Chapter 8:13. Like you? Chu Kuangren said coldly. You want to kill me? Hatsung, I've made countless contributions to the human race and now you're saying that you want to kill me? Are you worthy of being called a king? The heavenly yellow Taoist's face turned red as he said angrily. If everyone behaves like you, then the human race would be better off without any heroes. Chu Kuangren said coldly. No matter how many contributions the heavenly yellow Taoist had made to the human tribe, the fact that he attempted to cooperate with the deities and disregarded the dignity of the human tribe's martyrs, causing their blood and tears to be shed in vain, was enough for Chu Kuangren to kill him 1,000 times over. Sensing the murderous intent in Chu Kuangren's tone, the heavenly yellow Taoist panicked. He said to the heavenly masters and the others, Lord God, Star Slayer, Song is the biggest obstacle to our cooperation. He must be eliminated. Without him, I'll be the king of the human race, and our cooperation will continue. Stubborn fool. Chu Kuangren's mind surged, and countless spiritual chi weapons gathered and hovered at the peak of the godly mountain. Let's see who can stop me from killing you today. As soon as he said that, the spiritual chi weapons whizzed out. The heavenly yellow Taoist activated the heavenly golden imperial avatar to defend himself. Although he was a peak minor Taoist, it was still not enough against Chu Kuangren. His mind power alone was infinitely close to that of a great Taoist. Soon, the heavenly yellow Taoist was at a disadvantage. Under the continuous attacks of the spiritual chi weapons, the heavenly golden imperial avatar shattered again. Just when he was about to be killed, the deity made his move. Seal of time. An indifferent voice was heard. A mysterious time fluctuation appeared and enveloped the heavenly yellow Taoist, stopping the spiritual chi weapons in mid-air. Go. A figure came to the heavenly yellow Taoist's side and pulled him to the deity's side. Then, the effects of the seal of time were lifted, and the spiritual chi weapons smashed into the godly mountain's ground, creating craters. Oh, the spatial lord. Chu Kuangren looked at the spatial lord and smirked. Just when he was about to attack again, a golden sword ray suddenly whistled towards him. It was mixed with divine power and emperor's chi. All laws returned to ruins. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and formed a whirlpool to nullify the attack. He then looked at the person who had attacked. It was the Star Slayer who was holding the golden greatsword in his hand. A playful look appeared on his face. Yo, it's you. How many years has it been since we last met? Seems like you've improved quite a bit. I should give you a compliment. Zhang Xing stared at Chu Kuangren with a blazing battle intent in his eyes. Son, I don't know how you managed to survive, but today I can finally fight you to the death. As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his hand and slashed once more. Vajra Storm Slash. The golden sword Qi brought with it a terrifying storm that shattered the void wherever it passed as it locked onto Chu Kuangren. This strike was even more powerful than the Black-Yellow Path Masters. You're just a loser. You think too highly of yourself. Chu Kuangren chuckled. With a single thought, countless strands of cold air whistled out. Everything in the world, including space itself, was frozen. The golden storm of sword Qi was no exception. It was frozen in the air and turned into countless ice shards. 10,000 rivers are misty snow cold. The cold air spread wildly, and it was as if the entire godly mountain had turned into an ice mountain. Some of the overgods who could not evade in time were affected as well. The cold air invaded their bodies, and they felt as if their bodies were about to be frozen into ice sculptures. With a single thought, 10,000 blades created disaster. The spiritual energy weapons whistled towards Zhang Xing. Along the way there were overgods who could not block in time and were killed. Zhang Xing's eyes narrowed. He wielded the golden greatsword in his hand and swung it repeatedly to block the weapons. Even so, he was still forced to retreat. How powerful. So this is the power of a human king. Zhang Xing's gaze was extremely solemn. Then, his figure flickered, and like an unfathomable gust of wind, he shuttled through the thousands of blades with ease. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived in front of Chu Kuangren. The golden greatsword in his hand slashed out. Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. He raised his hand and formed a vortex, dispersing the power of that sword attack. However, Zhang Xing still held his greatsword tightly and did not budge an inch. He continued to channel divine power and Emperor's Qi into that vortex. At the same time, a ray of light shot out from Zhang Xing's body and instantly transformed into a figure that looked exactly the same as him. Cloning technique. That clone attacked Chu Kuangren from another direction. Interesting. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and a flaming lotus flashed. With a boom, that clone was blasted away by the flaming lotus. Meanwhile, Zhang Xing's figure retreated and merged back with that clone. Chu Kuangren looked at his opponent and said, "First, a movement technique and now a clone. Looks like you've done some research on my single thought. Firmament. For so many years I've been thinking about how to defeat you at all times. How could I not study your cultivation method?" Zhang Xing sneered. "Unfortunately, even after so much preparation, you still can't even hurt me. You're still too weak." "You?" Zhang Xing's expression darkened. Indeed, although he had done some research on Chu Kuangren, he still could not hurt him. If he could not hurt him, then all his research would be in vain. "Let's try this." Zhang Xing let out a low growl. His divine power and Qi refinement abilities erupted at the same time, resonating in the void and merging into an endless amount of energy. The entire godly mountain trembled because of this energy. Adamantine Emperor's waterfall slash. Zhang Xing tossed his golden greatsword into the sky. Taoist patterns flowed on the sword's body as golden sword Qi continuously swept out like a waterfall from the sky. It was extremely domineering. His strength has completely surpassed mine. The adamantine overgod looked at Zhang Xing and said. He was Zhang Xing's father, but now the child he had with a human lady had far surpassed him. This made him feel a little conflicted. A hybrid between a human and a god had actually surpassed him, a overgod. Attack together. The adamantine overgod yelled. He raised his hand and channeled his divine power before unleashing a punch. When the other overgods saw that, they too unleashed their divine powers. Flaming Dragon's luminous sun. Undead Howl. Icebound Heavens. Wrath of Earth. Five Thunders Apocalypse Blade. Demonic Qi Demonic Devour. The overgods attacked at the same time. After all, they were existences comparable to Tao Lords, and the power they unleashed at the same time was extremely terrifying. The entire sky was shrouded in colorful divine light, and the entire godly mountain was plunged into unprecedented turmoil. Golden Cauldron. The Golden Tao Lord attacked again. This time he took out his natal Taoist weapon. It was a golden three-legged cauldron that was engraved with mountains, rivers, birds, and beasts. As countless golden chi surged into the cauldron, the Taoist patterns on it began to flow and radiate a million rays of light as it smashed towards Chu Kuangren. The divine power attack, the suppression from the Tao Lord weapon, and all sorts of energies were unleashed, engulfing Chu Kuangren like an apocalyptic flood. In the face of such an attack, Chu Kuangren still did not panic. He gently raised his hand and channeled his ultimate Taoist Tao and mind power to their limits. Countless Taoist patterns flowed along his palm and spread in all directions. I've only used this attack against heavenly masters before. Now I'll let you all witness it. With a single thought, all shall be silent, and the heavens and earth shall perish. Chapter 8:14. With a single thought, silence descends upon the world. An indifferent voice rang out. Boundless thought power swept across the surroundings like a tidal wave. As the Taoist patterns intertwined and circulated, the entire world seemed to have fallen into an eerie silence. Everything went silent. Following that, the Taoist patterns converged and transformed into a circle of light with Chu Kuangren at the center. It then spread out in all directions. The boundless divine power was shattered. The heavenly yellow cauldron was smashed into pieces and sent flying. All the attacks dissipated under the spreading light. Some of the gods were also hit by the light wave and silently exploded into a bloody mist. A silent terror enveloped the entire godly mountain. However, when the light wave dissipated, almost half of the sovereigns present were either dead or injured. Most of the remaining sovereigns were injured and terrified. How can he be so strong? The heavenly yellow sect leader's face was extremely pale. His life's Tao weapon was close to being destroyed after that round of attack, which caused him to suffer a huge backlash. He did not have much combat strength left. He was in disbelief. At first, he thought that his years of hard work had brought him very close to the human king level or even beyond that. However, he did not expect the gap between them to be so huge. It was the same for Zhan Xing. He had made it his life's goal to defeat the human king and had spent countless years studying his opponent's techniques. However, he now realized that all his efforts were futile. Chu Kuangren gradually retracted his thought power, and the world returned to normal from the eerie silence. He looked at the situation around him with a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. The power of that technique was not too bad. With a single thought, Chu Kuangren developed the profundity of his thought power cultivation. After he left, the earthen and human souls continued to focus on their thought power cultivation and created a fifth technique based on the previous four techniques. Was this technique? Silence descends upon the world. The power of that technique was extremely terrifying. After the earthen and human souls developed it, they had only used it against the Lord God. The power of that technique is still as terrifying as ever. Someone exclaimed in surprise. It was the Lord God. The gods looked at him with hope in their eyes. The Lord God was the only one who had not made a move in this battle. As someone who had perished together with the human king back then, he should at least be as strong as the human king, right? Lord God, we're here to lend you a hand. Zhan Xing said. I hope you don't drag me down. The divine lord sneered without holding back. Then he looked at Chu Kuangren and said, You've even used the silent chord universal demise. What other trump cards do you have? Why don't you try and find out? Back then, in the Battle of Kunlun Abyss, you and I perished together. Now, on this divine mountain, I want to see if you can still do it. A terrifying divine power aura erupted from the divine master's body. The entire divine mountain shook. Somehow, there was a surge of power supporting his body. That was the power of the divine mountain. Tao merge state. At the same time, Chu Kuangren activated his heavenly Tao energy. God destroys the universe. The divine lord raised his hand and punched out fiercely. A massive destructive divine power swept out, shaking the universe and shattering the void. With a single thought, the myriad deities tribulation fire lotus. The golden red fire lotus suddenly appeared, its radiance illuminating all directions. Both sides attacked almost at the same time. Boom. The divine power and the fire lotus smashed into each other. The surrounding spectators were unable to withstand the impact of this powerful force and were all sent flying. This was a battle that was infinitely close to the battle prowess of a Tao master. Boom. Boom. The divine lord and Chu Kuangren exchanged moves back and forth. Their divine power and mind power each released a dazzling brilliance that dazzled the spectators. The master of the gods, the king of the human tribe. After more than 10 eras, the two sides exchanged moves again. The spectators felt as if they had returned to the time when they were in the immemorial Kunlun abyss. How satisfying. The Divine Lord laughed and said, Song, in all these years, you're the first human to have killed me. You're also the first human to have earned my respect. You're also the first human to have made me view you as my lifelong enemy. Come, let's try this. Try this divine technique that I've specially prepared for you. The Divine Lord's divine power aura did not change much, but the Taoist ripples on his body had become much stronger. Countless Taoist patterns intertwined in the void. The terrifying destructive divine power combined with the Taoist patterns and formed a gigantic pitch-black sword in the void. The spectators shuddered at the sight of that gigantic sword. It was a gigantic sword that was created specifically for destruction. What an interesting technique. Looks like you haven't been sleeping on the godly mountain for more than 10 eras. Chu Kuangren chuckled. My divine power is fixed because I don't have the power of faith, but my strength isn't. For so many years I've been invincible, but you're the one who made me thirst for strength. This is the first time I've ever wanted to defeat someone, and this technique is what I've created to defeat you. The Divine Lord said coldly. Without the power of faith, a god's divine power would be fixed. However, it was not impossible to increase their strength. The changes in their techniques would also affect the power of their divine power. However, due to the limitations of their divine power, no matter how they changed their techniques, they could not break through their limits. However, the previous Divine Lord had not reached his limits. After he was killed by the human king, he began to research his techniques. In order to unleash the full potential of his divine power, he created a new technique. Song, take this. Divine Destroyer Sword, King Slayer. The Divine Lord let out a soft cry and swung his sword. In an instant, the endless void exploded. Facing this sword, Chu Kuangren's eyes narrowed slightly. He channeled his mind power and ultimate Tao, and with a single thought, he unleashed the silent worldly demise. When the King Slayer sword collided with the light wave, a terrifying shockwave erupted. However, the light wave was at a disadvantage and was constantly shattered. For the first time, Chu Kuangren was forced to take a few steps back. Hot Song, how does that feel? The corners of the Divine Lord's mouth curled up. He felt proud and elated. His many years of hard work had finally paid off. Not bad. Chu Kuangren patted his chest and nodded slightly. Your worldly demise is no match for this technique of mine. One more sword and you'll fall. The Divine Lord laughed and once again channeled his divine power. That gigantic pitch-black greatsword formed again. The heavenly yellow sect leader, Zhan Xing, and the other sovereigns were delighted. As expected of the Lord of Gods. We'll win this battle. That's right. The return of the human king is just a joke. The destructive sword formed again. Seeing this, Chu Kuangren chuckled and said, I can't win with the worldly demise, but who told you that I only have the worldly demise? As soon as he said that, a surge of majestic Emperor Qi erupted and swept out in all directions. After channeling his mind power, Chu Kuangren activated the Emperor Qi in his body. Open your eyes wide and take a good look. In this life, besides my mind power, I also have this ultimate Emperor Qi. Chu Kuangren clenched his fist and channeled his majestic Emperor Qi and mind power at the same time. The ultimate Tao and ultimate Arcana were activated accordingly. The fusion of the three ultimate powers, under the support of the mental power and the power of the way of the heavens, turned into an unimaginably shocking power. What? The deities were dumbfounded. Even the Divine Lord was dumbfounded. Then he swung his sword. Divine Destroyer Sword, King Slayer. Invincible technique, Inverted Universe. Chu Kuangren unleashed a punch, and the inverted universe energy erupted. When the fist's strength landed on the black greatsword, it instantly shattered it, and a large amount of divine power was sent flying back. The Divine Lord was the first to bear the brunt of the attack, and he was instantly sent flying. Behind him, the other deities were also hit by the attack, and they too began to vomit blood. A large number of them fell to the ground. The weaker sovereigns died on the spot. Chapter 8:15. The Invincible Technique, Reversal of Heaven and Earth. The terrifying power swept out in all directions like raging waves. The entire divine mountain was shaken, and the gods were sent flying one after another. The weaker overgods were killed on the spot. A single attack had destroyed the King Slayer technique, annihilated the deities, and toppled the heavenly universe. Chu Kuangren stood where he was and slowly retracted his aura. His gaze was calm as he looked at the deities. As the human king, I shall sweep away all obstacles for the human race today. Deities, are you ready to die? How can he be so powerful? The deities had lost count of how many times they had been shocked. The combat strength that Chu Kuangren had displayed had surpassed all existences in the history of firmament. He was truly the strongest person in history. Let's attack together, the heavenly master said with a grim expression. The deities knew that there was no turning back between them and Chu Kuangren. It was a battle of life and death. Hence, the deities attacked again. Zhan Xing and the heavenly golden heavenly sovereign suppressed their injuries and fought back. However, they were all exhausted, so how could they defeat Chu Kuangren? Flame Dragon Roar. The flame overgod roared and charged towards Chu Kuangren. He unleashed a punch that was accompanied by a flurry of flames. Chu Kuangren did not retreat. He took a step forward and opened his palm. A vortex appeared and devoured the flames. Too weak. A golden red lotus appeared. The mighty flame overgod was burned to ashes on the spot. Icebound Realm. On the other side, the frost overgod controlled the blizzard. Chu Kuangren responded with his frost chi as well. Before the frost overgod could react, he was frozen by the frost chi and turned into an ice sculpture. Vajra Tyrant Break. Devastating thunder. The Vajra overgod charged towards Chu Kuangren. His fist was covered in golden light as an overbearing Vajra divine power gushed out. The lightning overgod followed closely behind, thrusting out a lightning spear. He chuckled as if he was looking down on Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and unleashed a punch with his physical strength. When his punch landed on the Vajra overgod's fist, the power that could destroy an entire planet instantly shattered the Vajra divine power. The Taoist patterns on the Vajra overgod's fist continued to crack, and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. With a blood-curdling scream, the Vajra Master God was sent flying while clutching his arm. Meanwhile, the lightning spear was already aimed at Chu Kuangren's face. However, in the next instant, a fair and slender arm disregarded the violent lightning energy and grabbed onto the lightning spear. Thunder God's expression changed as he felt an irresistible surge of energy erupting within him. His body was sent flying by Chu Kuangren uncontrollably before he crashed into the Vajra Master Deity. Judgment of Light. Dark Apocalypse. The Light Chief God and the Darkness Chief God activated their divine powers at the same time, causing two completely different Tao patterns to converge in the void. A black and a white light converged and rotated in a frenzy, forming a black and white light orb that contained a majestic amount of energy as it smashed towards Chu Kuangren. The Emperor's Chi floated behind Chu Kuangren and transformed into 10,000 avatars. The projection opened its palm and grabbed the black and white ball of light. Darkness and light shall still submit to chaos, Chu Kuangren said indifferently. The power of the primal chaos body erupted. Surges of chaotic chi gushed out from the 10,000 avatars' palm and forcefully crushed the black and white ball of light. Following that, a chaotic chi orb condensed on the 10,000 avatars' fist. It then unleashed a punch towards the Light Chief God and the Darkness Chief God. Not good. Dodge. The two chief gods wanted to dodge, but it was too late. The chaotic chi orbs smashed onto the two chief gods and exploded, turning into tens of thousands of chaotic chi orbs. Each orb of chaotic chi was as heavy as a star, and the two chief gods were killed on the spot. What a terrifying avatar. I can't believe this person can use chaotic energy. The deity's expressions changed. As Chu Kuangren unleashed his 10,000 avatars, he seemed to have a sudden urge to unleash all the Taoist physique powers he knew. With the enhancement of Chu Kuangren's Taoist Lord Realm cultivation base, the power of light, darkness, chaos, the exquisite 9 orifices sword chi, innate ferocious energy and so on, every single one of them was incredibly powerful. The group of deities was completely suppressed by a single avatar. The Dharma Taoist master Luo Shui and the others looked at each other. They initially wanted to help. However, from the looks of it now, there was no room for them to intervene. Chu Kuangren alone was enough to completely suppress the group of deities. If they were to intervene, it would be too unnecessary. Is this the power of a human ruler? It's too powerful. The bright moon Taoist master's mouth was slightly agape as she was dumbfounded. She was a little relieved. Fortunately, she had chosen to side with the human ruler. If she had chosen to side with the black-yellow Taoist, she did not know what would have happened to her. Meanwhile, the Taoist master and the other Taoists who had once followed the black-yellow Taoist master were still traumatized by their previous actions. They were too stupid. They could not believe that they were stupid enough to stand against the king. If the king wanted to kill them, it would be a piece of cake. Compared to the past, the king's strength is even more terrifying now. Yeah. In the past, the king only used his mind power. But now, the king cultivates both his mind and emperor's qi. His strength is too terrifying. I knew it. How could there be an anomaly like Chu Kuangren in this world? Turns out he's the reincarnation of the king. The Taoists discussed among themselves in awe. Space-time cage. At that moment, several white pillars of light appeared in the void. A powerful surge of space-time energy sealed off all directions and turned into a cage, trapping Chu Kuangren within. Hey, it's this divine weapon again. Chu Kuangren looked at the pillars of light around him and then at the space-time master god. In order to trap him, the space-time master god had pushed his space-time divine power to its limit. He then cast another time divine technique. Seal of time. A strange wave of energy shot towards Chu Kuangren. I've told you before that your space-time Tao is too weak. Chu Kuangren ignored the time divine technique. With a thought, circles of light waves spread out with him as the epicenter. The world fell silent. Under the impact of the light waves, the time divine technique immediately dissipated. Cracks began to appear on the pillars of light around him. You want to trap the king with this space-time cage? What a joke. As soon as he said that, with a loud explosion, the space-time cage was completely shattered. Endless energy surged out and blasted the space-time master god away, causing his divine body to collapse on the spot. However, in the next instant, time reversed. The space-time master god reappeared in his perfect form. However, he looked at Chu Kuangren with fear in his eyes. It was as if he was looking at the most inconceivable beast in the world. With such power, he's much stronger than before. No one in this world can stop him now. The space-time master god said with a trembling voice. Run. No one knew who was the one who suddenly roared. Then the deities frantically fled in all directions. The deities were afraid. They no longer cared about faith. With the king around, they would never have the chance to develop their faith in the human tribe. So what if they could revive with the help of the godly mountain? Every time they revived, Chu Kuangren would kill them. What was the difference between that and death? Chapter 8:16. Trying to escape? Where do you think you can run to? Chu Kuangren sneered. Then, somewhere in the godly mountain, a ray of golden light shot into the sky, and a giant golden seal floated above the godly mountain's peak. It was the human ruler's seal that sealed the godly mountain in the past. The human ruler's seal sensed Chu Kuangren's aura and automatically rose into the air, hovering above the godly mountain. Millions of rays of light descended and enveloped the entire godly mountain. Suddenly, the deities within the godly mountain had nowhere to go. It's the human ruler's seal. Chu Kuangren sealed the godly mountain with the human ruler's seal. Damn it. We can't leave now. The deities' expressions darkened. The Lord of Space said loudly, Tsang, I request for a truce. We, the deities, are willing to promise that we will never offend you humans again. Do you think I'm as stupid as the heavenly yellow Tao Lord? The fact that you gods tore up the 100,000-year agreement is still fresh in my mind. Your words are just **t to me. I don't even believe a single punctuation mark. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. With a lift of his arm, thousands of spiritual qi blades gathered. Song, the deities can help us conquer the outer sky civilization. Why do you have to kill them all? The heavenly yellow Tao Lord said. Oh, are you speaking up for the deities? Chu Kuangren glared at him coldly. I'm just stating the facts. The heavenly yellow Tao Lord was a little afraid. Neither you nor the deities can leave today. Chu Kuangren lifted his arm, and thousands of spiritual qi blades were about to explode. However, at that moment, a huge burst of energy erupted from the depths of the godly mountain, and a huge, colorful ball of light soared into the sky. A majestic wave of energy continuously spread from it. That's the godly mountain's origin. Only a heavenly master can activate the godly mountain's origin. What is he trying to do? Is he trying to? No way. The gods looked at the ball of light, and their expressions became one of fear and anger. It was as if someone had touched their sore spot. The crowd could not help but be curious. What was this godly mountain's origin that the deities were so concerned about? Chu Kuangren's interest was piqued. Shall AI analyze it? Analyzing. The origin of the sacred mountain, the power of the firmament star before the birth of the heavenly axiom, contains the root of the god's power. After analyzing it, Chu Kuangren came to a sudden realization. The origin of the godly mountain was the source of the deity's power. Once it was destroyed, the power of the gods would dissipate. Not only that, the reason why the overgods were able to resurrect one after another was all because of the divine mountain source. Once the source was destroyed, there was no way for them to resurrect. It was no wonder that the gods were so nervous and angry. I was still thinking about how to solve this once and for all. I didn't expect the God Lord to provide me with such a good idea. Chu Kuangren chuckled. The energy within the ball of light surged and rapidly shrank, and the gods felt their own power rapidly draining away. No, don't. God Lord, you are destroying the foundation of our gods. The gods were panicking, but there was nothing they could do. The Divine Master has lost his mind. He's willing to destroy his own foundation just to defeat Chu Kuangren. The temporal overlord chuckled bitterly. A figure gradually appeared in the five-colored light. It was the Divine Master. The Divine Master's appearance was different from before. Countless colorful Taoist patterns flowed on his body, and his radiance was dazzling. His eyes were like the stars, incomparably deep. Every move he made contained a kind of energy fluctuation that seemed like it could destroy heaven and earth. The Divine Master had gathered all of the gods' power into his body. Song, let's fight again. The Divine Master said coldly, and an unprecedented divine aura erupted from his body. He raised his arm, gathered his divine power, and unleashed a punch. Chu Kuangren also unleashed a punch. The two peerless energies collided. The godly mountain instantly exploded. Without the source of divine power, the godly mountain was no better than an ordinary mountain. If not for the human ruler's seal that sealed the space, the powerful energy fluctuation would have destroyed the nearby prefectures. This power is interesting. Chu Kuangren patted the dust off his chest. He realized that the Divine Master's power had reached the level of a great Taoist master. It made sense since he had gathered all of the gods' power into his body. It was normal for him to be able to unleash such power. There was a hint of excitement in his eyes. Looks like I can have a good fight today. He took a step forward, and the 10,000 avatars behind him also unleashed a punch. The Divine Master retaliated as well. Under the collision of their powers, the entire godly mountain was completely shattered, and the horrifying energy impacted the Taoist pattern seal that was set up by the human ruler's seal. Boom, boom, boom. Chu Kuangren controlled his avatar to unleash one punch after another against the Divine Master. Every time he unleashed a different Taoist fluctuation, he unleashed the full power of the 10,000 avatars. Sword Qi, innate ferocious Qi, light energy, darkness energy, and chaotic energy were unleashed one after another, causing the Divine Master to be a little flustered. What's going on with this avatar? The Divine Master said angrily. The divine power within his body circulated, and it was raised to another level. Divine destruction of the universe, break. Amidst the explosion, the 10,000 avatars were destroyed. However, destroying the avatar did not hurt Chu Kuangren at all. He took a step forward and came before the Divine Master. His physical strength, mind power, and Emperor's Qi erupted at the same time, and he swung his fists in a dazzling manner. Boom, boom, boom. Chu Kuangren and the Divine Master fought in close combat. His fists, palms, fingers, legs, elbows, and other parts of his body seemed to have turned into the most horrifying weapons in the world that contain the most horrifying energy. As their attacks collided, the entire godly mountain space began to collapse. It was the most primitive close combat without any mystical spells. It was the most exquisite technique, and neither of them gave way to the other. Both of them entered the void. Then they returned to the godly mountain from the void with their figures constantly changing. Everyone hid under the human mountain seal, and with its protection, they watched the battle with their mouths agape, unable to utter a single word. That battle was so exciting that they did not have the time to think about anything else, for fear of missing out on any details. I've got you. The Divine Master suddenly grabbed Chu Kuangren's wrists and sneered. A ferocious black dragon suddenly appeared on his chest. The black dragon opened its giant mouth and bit at Chu Kuangren. Idiot! Chu Kuangren sneered. Buzz! A sword chime was heard. Chu Kuangren unsheathed the long sword at his waist and stood in front of the black dragon. The dragon's head and the sword collided, and both Chu Kuangren and the Divine Master were forced back. The black dragon circled in the air with a horrifying aura. It then turned into a black halberd and landed in the Divine Master's hand. That was the divine weapon of the Divine Master, the black dragon halberd. Chu Kuangren had seen it once during the battle at Kunlun Abyss. A sword? I thought that beautiful longsword of yours was just a decoration. The Divine Master was surprised as he held the black dragon halberd in his hand. The descendant's self-sword trembled slightly. It was as if it was unhappy that the divine master called it a decoration. Chu Kuangren grabbed the hilt of his descendant's self-sword and transformed his Dao of invincibility into his sword Dao. The boundless sword Dao domineering aura tore the surrounding void apart. How many sword attacks can your black dragon halberd withstand? Arrogant. The divine master snorted and swung the halberd. The battle between the divine master and the king of the human tribe had opened a new chapter. From a bare-chested battle to a close-quarters combat, the battle's power had increased once again. Chapter 8:17. Clang, clang, a series of metallic clangs rang out in the void. What followed was a horrifying scene of the void exploding. The gorgeous white jade longsword and the ferocious black halberd clashed continuously. The descendant's self-sword and the black dragon halberd were two peerless weapons that added to the brilliance of this battle between man and God. Although the Almighty God had lived for countless years, he still could not suppress Chu Kuangren in terms of techniques and battle experience. After all, the Almighty God was born with unparalleled divine power, so he did not have many opportunities to fight with others to accumulate battle experience. However, Chu Kuangren was different. Since he started cultivating, he had fought countless battles. In the extraterritorial battlefield, he was even known as the dominator of the battlefield. His battle experience and techniques had long reached an extraordinary level. In fact, he could vaguely suppress the Almighty God. Humph! Black Dragon Halberd Technique, Soaring Dragon. The Almighty God snorted and unleashed his divine power as he swung his halberd. His divine power and Taoist patterns turned into a ferocious black dragon that soared into the sky and charged towards Chu Kuangren with an endless gust of wind. Heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique. Chu Kuangren also swung his sword. The sharp sword chi seemed to be able to tear apart everything in the world. After one move, neither side was willing to back down. The Almighty God once again activated his ultimate technique and tossed his halberd into the air. Surges of divine power flowed and intertwined with the Taoist patterns, causing countless strength chi to erupt. Black Dragon Halberd Technique, Soaring Dragon. The black dragon appeared again. Its divine power was like a boundless tide, its might vast and mighty. Heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique. Chu Kuangren swung his sword and slashed the dragon apart. Black Dragon Halberd Technique, Burning Dragon. With a long roar, black flames gushed out from the halberd. The black dragon swam in the sea of flames and charged towards Chu Kuangren. Heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique. Another sword attack. The sea of flames dispersed, but Chu Kuangren was still standing tall. The Almighty God was speechless. Is this the only technique you know? Chu Kuangren's fingertip brushed the descendant's self-sword's blade. His white robes made him look like a sword deity. One sword technique can break all techniques, unlike your fancy moves. The Almighty God's mouth twitched. The next move will decide the outcome of this battle between us. God Obliteration Sword. King Slayer. The Divine Master once again used his strongest divine ability. A gigantic pitch-black sword appeared in the void. Divine power filled with destructive aura surged in all directions, shaking the universe. Then, the deity lord threw out the black dragon halberd in his hand. It turned into a ferocious black dragon that coiled around the black god obliteration giant sword. The combination of the divine technique and the divine artifact shook the world. This attack was several times stronger than before. As the sword slashed out, the black dragon roared and sealed off the space around Chu Kuangren. There was no way for him to evade and he could only face the attack head-on. I'll show you the power of the human clan's sword. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. He leaped up and activated his Emperor Qi and Psyche power to the maximum. A wave of mysterious sword Dao rippled out. At this moment, countless swords on Firmament Star began to tremble. Supreme Emperor's sword art, unique in the universe. Chu Kuangren let out a cold roar, and a gigantic golden figure appeared behind him. That figure looked very similar to him. The difference was that the figure's face was filled with a terrifying dignified aura of supremacy and suppression. He was like an emperor. Chu Kuangren raised the descendant self-sword high in the air. Behind him, that emperor's form also raised its hand. A surge of golden sword chi surged in its palm. The golden sword chi then shot out toward the god obliteration sword. This was the human clan's sword, the human clan's sword. The divine master's eyes widened. F***CK. Didn't you say that you only know one sword technique? Why did you suddenly change your sword technique? Human clan's king, you're shameless. The divine master cursed in his heart. However, in the face of this Supreme Emperor's sword, he had no choice but to channel all his divine power to defend himself. Sword against sword, the ultimate techniques clashed. Thousands of miles of the void shattered one after another. The human ruler's seal glowed brightly in the void. In order to protect the surrounding prefectures, it trapped this incredibly powerful energy wave within the range of the godly mountain. Accompanied by the black dragon's wail, the god obliteration sword was destroyed. The divine master was swept away by the sword chi and was sent flying before he crashed into the enchanted boundary of the human ruler's seal. He immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, and the light on his divine body dimmed significantly. "You've lost." Chu Kuangren held the descendant self-sword in his hand and looked at the divine master indifferently. The Taoist masters were extremely excited. They looked at Chu Kuangren's back with fanatical admiration in their eyes. This was their king. Once again he had led them to victory against the gods. The gods, on the other hand, were devastated. They had lost. This time they had been utterly defeated. Even the divine master, who had absorbed the godly mountain's origin energy, was no match for Chu Kuangren. What else could they possibly have? Impossible. Impossible. I've gathered the god's energy into one, and my divine power is unprecedentedly strong. How can I lose? How is this possible? The divine master's eyes were bloodshot. He raised his hand and grabbed the black dragon halberd that had fallen not far away. I can't lose. Especially you. As the master of the gods, his dignity would not allow him to lose to a person twice. The divine master took a step forward and swung his halberd at Chu Kuangren. It's futile. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and swung his sword. The sword and halberd clashed again, and with a loud clang, a crack appeared on the black dragon halberd. Then the crack spread and covered the entire halberd before it shattered into pieces. The descendant self-sword shattered the black dragon halberd and landed on the divine master's body. It tore through his divine power and sent him flying. After that attack, the divine master was severely injured, and the godly mountain's origin energy that he had forcefully absorbed started to leak out from his body. Black dragon halberd. My black dragon halberd is broken. The divine master was in disbelief. Then he noticed his injuries and the godly mountain's origin energy leaking out from his body, and a vicious look appeared in his eyes. So, even if I die, I'll drag you and everyone else down with me. His divine body began to expand, and the countless Taoist patterns on it began to disintegrate. A vast and majestic energy was about to erupt. He's going to detonate the godly mountain's origin energy, one of the gods exclaimed. The godly mountain's origin energy was extremely vast. It was the source of all the gods' energy, and the divine master had not fully absorbed it. Even so, it had allowed him to reach the level of a Taoist master. If this energy were to detonate in an instant, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chu Kuangren thought of the battle at the Divine Blood Mountain. That explosion had caused endless natural disasters in half of the blood source star, and billions of lives were lost. So, can your human overlord seal withstand this energy? The divine master said in a frenzy. The human overlord seal was indeed powerful, but it would take at least 3 more human overlord seals to withstand the godly mountain's origin energy's explosion. You won't be able to detonate it. Chu Kuangren took a step forward and activated his time stop ability. Everything fell silent. In an instant, Chu Kuangren's descendant self-sword had already slashed across the divine master's neck and decapitated him. The divine master had fallen. With his death, the majestic godly mountain's origin energy slowly calmed down and was sealed back into the divine master's divine persona. It's over. The Dharma sect master breathed a sigh of relief. After killing the divine master, Chu Kuangren's figure flashed and appeared before the heavenly yellow Taoist master. His gaze was as cold as ice. My king, I was wrong. My king, I was wrong. I beg you, please give me another chance on account of my contributions to the human race. The heavenly yellow Taoist master knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. Green Robe and the heavenly torturers have contributed greatly to the human race as well. Yet, you want to kill them for the sake of cooperating with the gods? Didn't the Chaos Taoist master sacrifice his life for the human race as well? Yet, for your own selfish reasons, you've watched him get sealed inside the slumbering emperor coffin for more than 10 eras. If I don't kill you, I'll only disappoint them. Boom. The kneeling heavenly yellow Taoist master suddenly charged towards Chu Kuangren and unleashed a palm attack. With a ferocious expression he said, Song Dai. However, before he could even get close to Chu Kuangren, he was stopped by a surge of mind power. Then, that mind power turned into a vortex and swallowed the heavenly yellow Taoist master whole. The sound of bones cracking could be heard. Amidst his screams, the heavenly yellow Taoist master was crushed into a pile of minced meat by the mind power vortex. Chapter 8:18. After killing the heavenly yellow path master and the heavenly master, Chu Kuangren looked at the other deities who were present. Since the origin of the godly mountain had been forcefully absorbed by the heavenly master, these deities were left with very little divine power. They were no longer a threat to him. The only one left was Zhan Xing. Seeing that Chu Kuangren was looking at him, Zhan Xing could not help but shudder. Then he said unwillingly, "Song, you've been dead for more than 10 eras. Why do you still want to return?" "Because the human race still needs me," Chu Kuangren said indifferently. "If not for you, I would be the human king. I will lead them to live together with the gods and create a new era." Living together with the gods? Are you kidding me? The gods view the human race like pigs and dogs, treating them as tools. If you had really led the human race, I'm afraid that the human race would still be enslaved by the gods, living in darkness. Do you really think that man and God are irreconcilable? Zhan Xing said coldly. At the very least, I'm irreconcilable with these gods before me. Chu Kuangren swept his gaze across the master gods. Humans and gods coexisting. He could not deny this idea. Perhaps in other civilizations, there would be such a phenomenon. However, the gods and humans of the firmament star could never coexist. These gods had brought too much harm to the human race. The other sovereigns couldn't help but fall silent. At this moment they couldn't help but have a thought. If they had treated the human race a little better when they were born, would things be different now? At the very least, they wouldn't have to be in such an irreconcilable situation. Unfortunately, there was no turning back. Chu Kuangren gently raised his hand. Boundless spiritual qi converged into weapons and rained down like torrential rain. None of the gods present, including Slayer Star, were spared. Even the followers of the sect of 10,000 gods were not spared. These people had all been brainwashed and were hell-bent on the gods. If they were left alone in the human race, who knew what kind of trouble they would cause? He might as well deal with them all at once. Chu Kuangren could be very forgiving at times, but when he was ruthless, he was definitely an executioner who would kill without batting an eyelid. He walked in front of the God Lord's corpse and took out a prismatic crystal. This was the God Lord's divine deity, and it contained an extremely terrifying energy. That was the power of the gods, the source of the God Mountain. After cleaning up the battlefield, Chu Kuangren left with his people. The main gods had completely gone extinct. The remaining gods that were scattered in all directions were no longer a threat. "Your Majesty, should we remove the heavenly hatred formation?" The Tao Lords were all gathered in one place. The Path Master of 10,000 Laws asked. "No need to remove it." The Tao Master of 10,000 Laws was taken aback. He then asked, "The Water Path Lord and the others have been asleep for so long. Are we going to let them continue to sleep?" He did not believe that the king was such a heartless person. "True enough." Chu Kuangren chuckled. "Who told you that the hateful parting heaven formation must be dispelled in order to release Luo Shui and the others?" He looked into the sky and said, "This hateful parting heaven formation was something that the formation master and I came up with together. However, it requires a huge amount of energy to activate it. We can't find that kind of energy in the firmament star, so the formation master came up with the idea of using the formation master as the formation core. But now we have such energy." Chu Kuangren took out a few overgod godheads and said, "If I use these godheads to replace the Taoist masters, I'll be able to maintain the hateful sky formation. All I need to do is to change the energy periodically. We don't have many overgod godheads. What should we do if we run out of them?" The heavenly yellow Taoist master is right about one thing. The firmament star must continue to develop, and it's only a matter of time before we come into contact with the extraterrestrial civilization. It doesn't matter if we run out of energy. There are always replacements in the vast universe. Chu Kuangren said. "Yes." The Tao Master of 10,000 Laws nodded. Chu Kuangren left the task of replacing the hateful sky formation core with the overgod godheads to the Tao Master of 10,000 Laws. In just a few days, a few more Taoists appeared on the firmament star's side. These 9 Taoists gathered with the other Taoists. "I can't believe so many things have happened." A Taoist dressed in white could not help but lament after listening to the Tao Master of 10,000 Laws and the others. This person was the Sword Taoist Master, the first person in the firmament star to possess the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart. On the other hand, there were a few people by his side, and amongst them was Luo Shui's main body, a monk that wore a kasaya and held a staff in his hand, and a middle-aged man that wore armor that flowed with a faint baleful aura. By the way, where's the king? One of the Taoists asked. He was the Wind Valley Taoist, one of the strongest cultivators in the Defying God Pavilion. He was also one of the Taoists who had known Chu Kuangren for the longest time. Everyone, it's been a while. At that moment, a cheerful voice came from outside the great hall. Chu Kuangren slowly walked in. The Wind Valley Taoist, fiery martial Taoist, and the others were stunned when they saw the unfamiliar face before them. Although his face is different, his aura and Taoist aura are exactly the same as the king's. The Wind Valley Taoist murmured before he stepped forward and bowed. Greetings, king. King. The Taoist hurriedly bowed. Chu Kuangren swept his gaze across the crowd and smiled. Long time no see, everyone. Thank you for your hard work after sleeping for so long. Everything is for the firmament star. Yes, we have no complaints. Haha, compared to that, king, I heard that this is your reincarnated body, right? Your name is Chu Kuangren, right? At the end of the day, you're still different from the Tsang of the past. If you want me to recognize you as king again, you'll have to show me your strength. A middle-aged man in black armor laughed as he looked at Chu Kuangren with an uncontrollable battle intent in his eyes. Sky ferocious, don't be presumptuous. Luo Shui scolded. A king is a king. How can you offend your superior? The Wind Valley Taoist could not help but glare at the sky ferocious Taoist. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, waved his hand nonchalantly and smiled. So many years have passed, but you're still the same, sky ferocious. The sky ferocious Taoist was the firmament star's first infallible tormented physique. He was a famous battle maniac among the Taoists, and it was because Tsang had beaten him into submission that the latter recognized him as king. Now he was Tsang's reincarnated body in name. In the sky ferocious Taoist's eyes, he and Tsang were two different people. To convince the sky ferocious Taoist, he had to display his strength. Chu Kuangren lifted his hand and tore open a crack in the void. He smiled and said, "Let's fight in the void. I'll teach you how to be a man." The sky ferocious Taoist chuckled. I couldn't ask for more. He then took a step forward and entered the void. In the void, Chu Kuangren and the sky ferocious Taoist were facing each other in the void. A black spear appeared in the sky ferocious Taoist's hand. The spear was surrounded by terrifying innate ferocious qi and Taoist patterns. Take this, Chu Kuangren. The sky ferocious Taoist raised his arm and activated his emperor's qi. He unleashed a spear attack without any probing. His first attack was at the level of a Taoist master. Chu Kuangren smirked. He did not use his mind power. Instead, he gathered a small world in his palm and grabbed the incoming spear. Then he yanked and dragged the sky ferocious Taoist towards him. Chu Kuangren's knee landed directly on his opponent's stomach. Even with the protection of his armor, the sky ferocious Taoist could not help but let out a cry of pain. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren followed up with a series of quick attacks. His fists, palms, knees and elbows caught the sky ferocious Taoist off guard. The sky ferocious Taoist groaned in pain. Wind Valley Jianghu and the others were dumbfounded. From what they remembered, the king had never engaged in close combat with anyone before. How did he become so powerful now? Chapter 8:19. In the void, the sky ferocious Taoist master, who had never expected Chu Kuangren to engage in close combat, was caught off guard. A series of swift attacks from Chu Kuangren had left him dizzy, and all he could see were the shadows of fists and palms. Break! The Heaven Fiend Tao Master let out a long howl and released his Heaven Fiend Dharma characteristic. The moment his Dharma idol appeared, the Sky Fiend Tao Master's strength multiplied. Surging baneful aura howled as it slammed into the void in a frenzy. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren unleashed his 10,000 Taoist avatar as well. From the looks of it, it was many times more powerful than the divine ferocious avatar. The Heaven Fiend Tao Master swallowed his saliva. He had a bad feeling about this. Compared to the myriad Tao Dharma aspects, his Heaven Fiend Dharma aspect was like a child. There was no comparison at all. Moreover, he could actually sense the aura of his infallible tormented body from the Dharma idol. No, not only the infallible tormented body but also the chaos body, the all principles coalescence body and other Tao bodies. Why did King's fighting style change so much? The Heaven Fiend Tao Master was puzzled. However, Chu Kuangren's 10,000 Taoist avatar had already pinned the divine ferocious avatar to the ground. With a few punches, it was instantly smashed into nothingness. Immediately after, the Sky Fiend Tao Master felt a terrifying force lock onto him. Then his body was grabbed by the 10,000 Tao Dharma forms. No matter how much he conjured the Emperor Qi, he was unable to break free. Do you still want to fight? Chu Kuangren smiled playfully. Sky Fiend Tao Master hurriedly shook his head. Let's not fight anymore. It was true that he liked to battle, but that did not mean that he liked to be tortured. He finally understood that the gap between him and Chu Kuangren was too big. They were not on the same level at all. After all, he was a mid-stage little Tao Lord. To him, Chu Kuangren was at least at the peak of a minor Taoist master, and he might even be comparable to a great Taoist master. Chu Kuangren dispersed the 10,000 Taoist avatar. Heaven Fiend Tao Lord walked in front of him and knelt on one knee. Greetings, Your Majesty. I was rude just now. Please punish me, Your Majesty. He was completely convinced. The king in front of him was even more powerful than before. Hack it up. You've always been like this, so there's no need to punish me. Chu Kuangren chuckled. For the sake of the firmament star, Chu Kuangren had willingly turned himself into a formation core and slumbered for 12 eras. Why would Chu Kuangren be calculative over such a small matter? King, you've become even stronger. The Heaven Fiend Tao Master said sincerely. Of course. Not only has the king become stronger, he has also become more charming. A female Taoist master walked over and looked at Chu Kuangren with an indescribable passion in her eyes. Her name was the Dark Moon Tao Lord. She respected Chu Kuangren as if he was a deity, and she also had feelings for him. She would confess to Chu Kuangren every few days, but she was always rejected. However, she still followed by his side and remained loyal to him. Restrain yourself, I'm about to drool. Luo Shui reminded the Dark Moon Tao Lord. TCH, if you like him, then you like him. Why do you have to restrain yourself? The Dark Moon Taoist snorted and did not take it to heart. He then walked towards Chu Kuangren and said, My king, I've been in a deep slumber for so long. Now that we finally meet again, I'd like to warm your bed. Her eyes were filled with anticipation. No need, my blanket is quite warm. Chu Kuangren said helplessly. He had lost count of how many times he had heard similar conversations in his memory. Oh. The Dark Moon Tao Lord was a little disappointed, but she soon returned to normal. After being rejected so many times, she was already used to it, and her Taoist core was now indestructible. After meeting with the Tao Lords, the next step was to deal with the internal affairs of Firmament Star and reorganize the military and civilians of the 81 strongholds. It was a very exhausting task. Even with the help of Elder Rian and the other Tao Lords, it still took up a lot of Chu Kuangren's time. A few months later, Chu Kuangren and the Tao Lords had come up with a general plan for Firmament Star's future development. All that was left was to carry it out. Chu Kuangren left these matters to Elder Rian. Speaking of which, Elder Rian had always been Chu Kuangren's best assistant in handling these trivial matters. She could always help him with them. Elder Rian, no matter what, I'm a human king now. Why don't I make you the human tribe's great chief? Chu Kuangren rubbed his chin and looked at Elder Rian, who was organizing some documents beside him. Elder Rian rolled her eyes. The Black Heaven sect alone is enough to keep me busy. What about the entire human tribe? Oh, my sect leader, my king, please spare me. This is a supreme authority. I can't believe you don't want it, Elder Rian? Chu Kuangren teased. Hee, if you want to tire me to death, just say it. Ha, I still need to rely on Elder Rian's help from now on. By the way, Elder Rian, do you have any thoughts on the future development of the human tribe? Chu Kuangren changed the topic. Elder Rian flipped through the documents in her hands and said, Then I'll just say it. In the current human tribe, only the higher-ups know that you're a human king, sect leader, but the lower-level cultivators and commoners don't. Besides, the human tribe's forces are too scattered now. There are hundreds of nations, big and small, not to mention the orthodoxies formed by cultivators. There are a lot of sage orthodoxies and emperor orthodoxies. If it were in the past, it wouldn't be a problem to let them govern themselves. However, sect leader, you want to develop the extraterrestrial civilization in the future, right? Although I don't know how strong the extraterrestrial civilization is, I'm sure a civilization is 1,000 times stronger than an emperor orthodoxy. To resist foreign aggression, we must first stabilize our internal affairs. If the Firmament Star's forces are scattered like this, it'll be very difficult to mobilize them if we encounter any problems, let alone fight against the extraterrestrial civilization. Chu Kuangren listened quietly as his knuckles unconsciously tapped on the armrest of his chair. Then he asked, "What do you intend to do, Elder Rian?" "The best way to centralize power is to build a nation." Chu Kuangren smiled. Elder Rian, who was the first to answer, nodded and said, "That's right. Let's not talk about the demonic tribes and the like in the Firmament Star for now. The human forces must first be unified, and the best way to do that is to establish a unified, centralized nation." Building a nation. I miss it. Chu Kuangren looked nostalgic. He had built an empire before. He led the human tribe from the tribal era to the era of city-states, and then built the first human kingdom. However, after the war with the deities and his death, that kingdom fell apart, and the human tribe gradually became what it was today. "Let's gather Luo Shui, Han Dun, and the others for a discussion." Chu Kuangren smiled. Soon Han Dun, Luo Shui, and the others gathered together, and Chu Kuangren told them about Elder Rian's idea. Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard that, and they looked at Elder Rian with a fiery gaze. Elder Rian was shocked. After all, these people were the big shots of the Firmament Star, and any one of them could kill her 1,000 times over. Being stared at by all of them made her a little nervous. "Your brother Rian, right?" The Dharma Taoist master smiled. You flatter me, you flatter me." Elder Rian was a little scared. "Oh my God, you're talking to me as a peer." She was not even an emperor yet, and yet she was addressing a Taoist master as a fellow Taoist. That was unbelievable. Chapter 820. Seeing how terrified Elder Rian was, the Dharma Taoist master tried his best to speak in a gentler tone. "Brother Rian, your idea is very good. Can you tell us more about it?" Is he asking me to give him some pointers? Elder Rian was a little nervous. If I don't do well, will he give me a hard time? Chu Kuangren transmitted from behind, "Elder Rian, hold your head high and don't be afraid. Don't forget that your sect leader is here." Upon hearing that, Elder Rian felt a little more confident. She began to tell them her idea. At first she was a little stumbling, but eventually her words became smoother and smoother. All kinds of ideas emerged one after another. The Taoist master's eyes lit up as they listened. Fellow Taoist Ru Yan's idea is truly brilliant. That's right. If Brother Rian's idea can be implemented, then all the forces in Firmament Star will be united. This will be a great help to our future development of the extraterrestrial civilization. The Taoist master said excitedly. Elder Rian looked at the Taoist masters and breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that although these Taoist masters had lived for a long time, they were not as knowledgeable as she was in this aspect. She suddenly felt a little fortunate. It seemed that she could still help the sect leader. In fact, she had been worried for the past few days because Chu Kuangren was no longer just the Black Heaven sect leader. He was now the king of the humans. With that, Chu Kuangren's focus on the Black Heaven sect would be greatly reduced. Moreover, with so many Taoist masters around him, a cultivator who was not even an emperor like her would be too insignificant. Moreover, she was not as talented as the other cultivators who had a peerless Taoist physique that could catch up to Chu Kuangren's cultivation level. In the future, she would probably drift further away from the sect leader. At that thought, she still felt a little sad. However, she no longer felt that way. There were many powerful cultivators around the sect leader, but they were always busy with cultivation, so they could not handle internal affairs as well as she could. She was still quite useful to the sect leader. Seeing the Taoist masters discussing among themselves, Elder Rian was a little thirsty from all the talking and wanted to find a cup of tea. Beside her, a teacup automatically floated over. It was Chu Kuangren. "Elder Rian, thank you." "Thank you, sect master." Elder Rian took the teacup. "Elder Rian, I'll leave the matter of establishing a nation to you. Feel free to ask me if you need any help." Chu Kuangren smiled. You want me to handle such an important matter? Wasn't this your idea, Elder Rian? Of course you have to do it." Chu Kuangren chuckled. Elder Rian hesitated. By the side, Luo Shui smiled faintly and said, "What King said is right. We're not adept at dealing with these matters. We'll have to trouble fellow Taoist Rian." "That's right. Since the king has said so, fellow Taoist Ru Yan, go ahead and do it. If anyone dares to disagree, just tell us." I want to see who dares to stop us from establishing a nation." The most powerful Tao lords in the world spoke one after another. Elder Rian nodded solemnly. "All right then." Just like that, Elder Rian, who was not even an emperor, became the most powerful person in Firmament Star, second only to Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren had left the task of establishing a nation to Elder Rian and the others. He went to the towering Heaven Palace and prepared to go into closed-door meditation. The forces of Firmament Star can be united, but for a civilization to truly stand in the vast universe, it needs absolute power. A civilization without an immortal can't last long. My main goal now is to become an immortal, Chu Kuangren murmured. He took out a prismatic crystal. It was a godhead. A heavenly master's godhead. This godhead contained an enormous amount of energy. Besides the heavenly master's own energy, there was also a portion of the godly mountain's origin energy. Ordinary cultivators could not refine this energy. However, Chu Kuangren had the universal cauldron physique, so he could. He began to refine the godhead. Time passed and soon half a year had passed. On this day, Chu Kuangren woke up from his closed-door meditation. He had completely refined the energy within the godhead, and his cultivation level had risen from the Little Downlord realm to the late Little Downlord realm. That was his cultivation level. His combat strength could not be measured by his cultivation level. Ultimate Emperor Essence, Ultimate Tao, and Ultimate Profundity. Just these three ultimate powers were enough for him to have the capital to fight those of a higher level. Not to mention he had the heavenly Tao energy, mind power, immortal techniques, immortal body, and other trump cards. He could even fight a great Tao Lord. It would not be a problem for him to defeat an ordinary great Tao Lord. I wonder how Elder Rian and the others are doing. Chu Kuangren's emperor's thoughts spread throughout the Black Heaven sect. He saw that Lan Yu was cultivating. Murong Xian and Nangong Huang were sparring. The godly phoenix Lil Red was secretly eating a spirit fruit in the Fairfrost Valley. Mysterious Force and the third forefather were playing chess, and they seemed to have fallen into a predicament. The seventh forefather beside them was so anxious that he wanted to say something but could not. Unknowingly, the white-robed general had found the Sky Fiend Tao Lord and was asking him about the mysteries of the infallible tormented physique. Wherever the emperor's thought passed, the scenery of the Black Heaven sect appeared in his mind. He found Elder Rian, who was with Gu Linglong, and in front of her was a map of the Firmament Star. Both of them were discussing the matter of establishing a nation. When they talked about the key points, they even used the sand table beside them to rehearse. They seemed to be more concerned about this matter than Chu Kuangren. Linglong was once the Royal Azure Dynasty's empress, so she must have her own experience in governing a nation. It's a good idea for her to work with Elder Rian on this matter, Chu Kuangren thought to himself. Then he opened the fantasy roulette. Congratulations, host. You have obtained the legendary high-grade battleship blueprint. The battleship blueprint. Chu Kuangren retrieved it and pondered. This item came at the right time. In order to develop in the universe, other than relying on strong cultivators, all kinds of advanced cultivation techniques were indispensable. Alchemy, equipment refinement, runes, formation techniques, and so on. Among them, there was one thing that was particularly important, and that was a battleship that could travel in the universe and be used in battle. The manufacturing process of a battleship was extremely complicated, and it involved various techniques such as formation and runes. The quality of a battleship often represented the development of a cultivation civilization. Chu Kuangren took a look at the battleship blueprint that he had obtained from the fantasy roulette. The formations and runes on it were far more advanced than the highest-grade battleships in Firmament Star. They were even better than the battleships of the Blood Origin planet. I'll bring this item to Scarlet Sun and the Array Master. Let them study it, Chu Kuangren thought to himself. His figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already on a planet in the outer domain. With his current strength, he could freely enter and exit the hateful parting formation without the help of a teleportation formation. When he found the Scarlet Sun Taoist Lord, he took out the battleship blueprint. The Scarlet Sun Taoist Lord took a look at it and instantly felt like he had obtained a priceless treasure. This is great. If we had this battleship in the past, the war against the Blood Tribe wouldn't have been so difficult. My king, where did you get this from? I got it by chance. Chu Kuangren chuckled. The Scarlet Sun Taoist Lord did not pursue the matter. Instead, he found the Array Master, an old man with a white beard, and the two of them started studying it together. Chu Kuangren did not disturb them. After giving them some simple instructions, he was not in a hurry to return to Firmament Star. Instead, he began to wander around the nearby astral ocean. My starlight immortal physique has not improved in a while. Let's find a planet to devour, Chu Kuangren thought to himself. Chapter 821. the threat of the deities had been resolved. Firmament Star was busy with the establishment of a new nation while the Scarlet Sun Taoist and Formation Taoist masters were studying the worship. Everything was progressing smoothly. Half a year passed peacefully. In that half a year, Firmament Star had changed drastically. Under Elder Ruyan's leadership, all the orthodoxies and nations knew about the human king, which caused a huge uproar. Chu Kuangren was a human king? The news shocked the entire Firmament Star. Some orthodoxies did not know what a human king was, but they knew Chu Kuangren. He was the most terrifying demon in the history of Firmament Star. Some ancient orthodoxies had heard about the human king and were shocked to learn that Chu Kuangren was a human king. After the shock, they were included in the empire's territory. They did not have the ability to say no to that. Originally, there were still some forces that wanted to resist, especially the orthodoxies with emperors. They were even more unruly. However, it was useless no matter how arrogant they were. Any Taoist master could easily defeat any emperor orthodoxy. In just half a year, all the reputable human forces in Firmament Star had surrendered and were willing to accept the empire's jurisdiction. Just as Firmament Star was undergoing a drastic reform. In outer space, a warship gradually took shape in the Sea of Stars. On the deck of the warship, the Formation Taoist Master and Scarlet Sun Taoist Master had countless light runes circulating in front of them as they tested the warship's performance. Rays of light runes condensed at the bow of the warship's cannon, and the surrounding spiritual chi frantically gathered towards it. The cannon was glowing and the light runes were circulating, the spiritual chi was being compressed. When it reached its peak, a beam of light shot out from the cannon, piercing through space and landing on an uninhabited planet in the distance. The planet was instantly penetrated, but the beam of light continued onward like a hot knife through butter. Wherever the beam of light went, the void collapsed and everything was destroyed. The planet that was penetrated also exploded, like fireworks blooming in the pitch-black starry sky, beautiful and resplendent. The energy of the beam of light was exhausted, and it gradually dissipated. However, the Formation Taoist Master and Scarlet Sun Taoist Master were still in a daze. Gulp. The Scarlet Sun Taoist Master gulped and said, "This power must have surpassed the peak of a junior Taoist. How terrifying." Even as one of the creators of this warship, the Scarlet Sun Tao Lord could not help but be shocked by the performance of this warship. It's just that this attack consumes too much energy. It's a full 1/5 of the battleship's energy. We have to use it carefully. Yes. With Firmament Star's current resources, how many more can we build? We can build 3 more. The Scarlet Sun Tao Lord licked his lips. Continue. In another place. In outer space, a large number of warships were approaching the Firmament Star. These people were the Blood Tribe. In a certain huge battleship, a man dressed in luxurious embroidered robes sat cross-legged on the deck with a long sword in front of his knees. Sword chi flowed around his body, looking extremely frightening. A few Blood Kings watched from the side with fear in their eyes. As expected of a genius from Purple Star, this aura is indeed extraordinary. It's even stronger than most Tao Masters. King Ming said solemnly. It's said that this person has cultivated for less than 1,000 years, yet his cultivation is already at the Tao Lord realm. However, such a genius isn't even in the top 10 of Violet Star. It's said that the top 10 are all Violet Star immortal seeds. The Moon Prince lamented. Purple Star was one of the 2 strongest immortal civilization in the Purple Gold Galaxy, and immortal seeds were the top sky prides cultivated by the immortal civilization. Immortal seeds, as the name suggested, were the seeds to become immortals. Every immortal seed had the potential to become immortal. Of course, it was only potential. Even if it was an immortal seed, it would still be difficult to become immortal. The Purple Star civilization had been developing for more than 10 years, and they had cultivated countless immortal seeds. However, they had yet to produce an immortal. This showed how difficult it was to become an immortal. However, this did not deny the power of immortal seeds. At least they had the potential to become immortals. Although the Blood Kings were Tao Masters, they had no chance of becoming immortals. Immortal seeds are existences that we can only dream of. King Ming looked into the depths of the warship. There was an immortal seed there. Hey, are we there yet? The young man sitting cross-legged looked at the Blood Kings and asked. We're almost there. About half a month more. King Ming replied. You guys have been fighting Firmament Star for so many years, yet you still haven't conquered it. The Blood Tribe civilization is too useless. The young man said. Brotherly, please be more courteous. King Ming took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart as he spoke. Most of the resources for this Blood Tribe expedition were provided by the Purple Star civilization. So what if I'm rude to you? But these were exchanged with the art of seizing the heavens. Then you should be glad that the Purple Star civilization is interested in your art of seizing the heavens. Otherwise, you guys won't be able to achieve anything in the next few years. The young man's tone did not change. King Ming snorted coldly and said no more. Among the Blood Tribe, only the Blood God has some ability. In order to break through to the Heavenly Tao Master level, he dared to devour the Heavenly Tao. The funny thing is that he fell into a deep sleep because of it. It's been more than 10 years and he still hasn't woken up. The young man continued. The Blood King's expressions turned even more sour. The Blood God was their faith. The young man's words had touched their bottom line, and they could no longer hold back their anger. Li Feng, we're working with the Blood Tribe. Watch your attitude. An indifferent voice came from the depths of the warship. Yes, Your Highness. A hint of respect flashed across Li Feng's eyes. The Blood Kings gradually calmed down as well. I heard that the Blood Source planet was damaged to this extent because of a young sky pride from the firmament star. Is that right? The indifferent voice spoke again, asking the Blood King. At the mention of that, a hint of hatred flashed across King Ming's eyes. That's right. That person is called Chu Kuangren. It's because of him that King Ming then told the story about Chu Kuangren. After listening, the indifferent voice pondered for a while before saying, if I'm not wrong, this person is also an immortal seed. That's possible. King Ming nodded. That age, that cultivation level, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was an immortal seed. Tisk, even if he's an immortal seed, he's dead now. A dead immortal seed is nothing. Li Feng sneered. But you're not even an immortal seed. The Blood King sneered in his heart. In the universe, on an uninhabited planet, a ray of light arrived. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up as he looked at the brownish-yellow planet before him. He licked his lips and said, Shall I analyze it? Analyzing. A grade 4 planet contains a large amount of Taoist gold, spiritual marrow and spiritual ores. If you devour it, Master's immortal stellar physique will reach the full success realm, the omniscient spirit Xiao Ai said. In the past few days, Chu Kuangren had devoured more than 10 uninhabited planets, and his immortal stellar physique had reached the limit of the full success realm. He was only one step away from the full success realm. Full success immortal stellar physique, huh? I'm looking forward to it. Chu Kuangren smiled. Then, his figure turned into a ray of light and plunged into the depths of the planet before him. Chapter 822. Outside Firmament Star. Tens of thousands of warships were gradually approaching. General Luo Shui Dao, who was overseeing Fort 31, was holding a jade slip in his hand. His face was so gloomy that it looked like it was about to drip water. It was a message from a scout at the front line. The Blood Tribe army was closing in. Apart from her, the other fortresses also received the news. How could this be? The Blood race was clearly dealt a heavy blow in the Battle of Blood Source Mountain. They shouldn't have been able to stop the war for several years. Why is it that a great army has arrived in just a few years? Luo Shui said in a low voice. She quickly called for a military conference. During the meeting, the various Empyreans and Tao Lords gathered. Oh, the Blood Clan is here again. I haven't really fought with them in the past. This time I have a chance. The Sword Tao Lord's eyes flashed with coldness. Amitabha, my Buddha is merciful. Although I don't want to kill too much, if you want to destroy my home, my Buddha will also be furious. The old monk in the golden red kasaya said lightly. He was the Buddhist Taoist master. He was the founder of the Firmament Star Buddhist sect. All the Tao Lords and heavenly venerables present were born in the sky and grew up in it. They would definitely not sit idly by and watch Firmament Star fall into the ravages of war. It was the same 10 years ago and it would be the same 10 years later. Did you manage to contact the king? The Tao Master of the River of Rivers asked. Not yet. The Tao Master of 10,000 Laws shook his head. The Blood race has suffered heavy losses and there aren't many Tao Lords left. There's no need for the king to act. Just leave the Blood race to us. The Sword Tao Lord said. The other Tao Lords were in deep agreement when they heard that. In their minds, the Blood race had lost a whopping 17 Tao Lords in the Battle of Blood Source Mountain. How many more would they have left? Once everyone was done with their discussion, they began to set up defenses. We're finally here. Several million kilometers away from Firmament Star. The warships were lined up and the vampires were ready to set out. The Wisdom King looked at the blue and white stars in the distance, his eyes burning with ambition. This time, I must conquer the firmament star in one fell swoop and seize the heavenly will of this world. I'll then use the resources to restore the blood source planet. The blood origin star had suffered too much damage. They had to replenish themselves as soon as possible. Otherwise, if they were targeted by other civilizations, it would be very easy for them to be annexed by them. Are we finally here? My body is about to rust. Li Feng slowly stood up. Sword chi erupted from his body, causing the surrounding stars to tremble. Suddenly his eyes flashed. It seems like someone has come to greet us. A group of figures suddenly appeared in the void not far away. Each of these people exuded an extremely powerful aura. Even the weakest among them had a heavenly venerate cultivation base. They were cultivators from the firmament star. Daolord Jian, Daolord Luo Feng, and the others were among them. They actually chose to take the initiative to attack. The far-sighted ruler's pupils dilated slightly. He noticed that there seemed to be a few new Daolords in Firmament Star that he had never seen before. Daolords were the pinnacle combat power of a civilization. There were not many Daolords on the Blood Origin Star. Especially after the battle on the Blood Origin Mountain, Daolords were extremely scarce. However, in the Firmament Star, there were suddenly a few Daolords whom he had never seen before. What was going on? King Ming was a little confused. Blood breed, it's not too late for you to turn around and scram. The Dao Master of Myriad Laws looked at the Blood Tribe and snorted coldly. You want us to leave? Impossible. This time you won't be able to protect Firmament Star. Firmament Star should have belonged to the Blood breed a long time ago. King Ming said coldly. What's the point of saying so much? We're going to fight anyway. I've been asleep for so long, it's a good time to stretch my muscles. Yen Wu took a step forward and his emperor's energy erupted. Beside him, the Sky Fiend Daolord sneered. I was beaten up by the far-sighted ruler. Now it's my turn to beat up others. As soon as he finished speaking, ferocious energy circulated and the divine ferocious avatar erupted. The other Daolords took out their Dao weapons. King Ming frowned slightly and did not waste any more time. Attack. In an instant, the Blood Breed Army's warships shone brightly. Beams of energy blasted towards the Daolords. Chaotic heavenly splendor. As the Water Dao Master raised her hand, Emperor's energy circulated and a pitch-black long sword appeared in her hand. Waves of chaotic energy spread out with her as the center, turning into a barrier that blocked all the light beams. Chaotic heavenly splendor slash. The Water Dao Master shouted coldly. The pitch-black longsword sliced through the void and a chaotic sword ray that stretched for billions of miles descended from the sky, destroying the warships one by one. A series of sparks bloomed in the dark and silent universe. The Water Dao Master, the Firmament Star's first Empress. She was also the second Chaos body apart from the Chaos Daolord. Her previous reincarnation did not have a Chaos body, so she could not unleash her Dao to the fullest. Now that she was attacking, the first Empress glory was on full display. Ha, Sister Luo Shui's sword technique is still so sharp. I can't fall behind. Yen Wu laughed heartily as a halberd suddenly appeared in his hand. With a swing of the halberd, a gigantic fire dragon soared into the sky. The fire dragon shone brightly, illuminating the dark universe. One by one, the warships were engulfed and the blood breeds screamed as they turned into ashes. The strength displayed was not much weaker than the Water Dao Master. Divine ferocious avatar. The Sky Fiend Daolord growled. The gigantic avatar soared into the sky and threw punch after punch. Majestic innate ferocious energy flew out like meteors. Wherever it went, the void exploded and the warships were destroyed. Kill? A blood breed emperor and a heavenly venerable charged at the crowd. At this moment, a monk stood in front of them. The monk looked old and did not pose much of a threat. However, in the next instant, a terrifying aura that suppressed the heavens and earth erupted from his body. Amit Ba. Dear benefactors, go to paradise. The Buddhist Daolord put his palms together. Then, a gigantic Buddha avatar that emanated boundless golden light appeared in the dark universe. The Buddha avatar raised its palm that was as large as the stars and struck out. The void exploded. One by one, the blood breed emperors and heavenly venerables were turned into dust. Damn it, since when did the firmament star have so many Daolords? The wisdom sovereign's expression was extremely ugly. Seeing the blood breed soldiers being slaughtered one after another, he could no longer sit still. The Blood Kings attacked at the same time. Good. The Sky Fiend Tao Lord laughed and activated the divine ferocious avatar. He raised his spear and fought with a Blood King. The other Tao Lords also fought with the Blood Kings. Bang bang bang, in the dark universe, countless Taoist patterns intertwined in the void. The battle between the Tao Lords caused violent gales of the universe to sweep across tens of thousands of kilometers, and the stars around them shook. On both sides there were two people who had yet to make a move. One was the Sword Tao Lord. The other was Li Feng. Both of them were Tao Lords who specialized in Sword Tao. When their eyes met, their terrifying Sword Tao auras collided with each other. Sword Chi circulated, and the majestic sword auras clashed against each other, neither giving way to the other. Looks like my trip to the Firmament Star was not a waste. To be able to meet a Sword Tao cultivator like you, Li Feng said with a smile. The Sword Tao Lord slowly unsheathed his divine terminus sword. He had lent this sword to Chu Kuangren before, and it was damaged during the battle at the Blood Source Mountain. However, after he woke up, he had asked the Scarlet Sun Tao Lord to rebuild it. He even added some leftover purple gold from the Descendant's self-sword. Not only was the sword rebuilt, but its power was also enhanced. Chapter 823. With the Tianju sword in hand, the Sword Path Master's aura was unprecedentedly strong. An incomparable sword pressure swept out for tens of thousands of miles. Putting Chu Kuangren aside, if one were to ask an emperor who had participated in the Defiant God War on Firmament Star who were the most powerful Taoist masters on Firmament Star, they would most likely think of two people. The first was the Tao Master of Chaos. The other party's chaotic body was extremely powerful. In the battle against the gods, he could even suppress the overgods. He was one of the most important battle forces in that battle. The second person was not the Black-Yellow Path Master. Instead, it was the Sword Tao Master. As the first person in the Firmament Star to possess the exquisite 9 orifices Sword Heart Taoist physique, as well as the #1 swordsman throughout history, his combat strength was not much weaker than the Chaos Taoist Master. His cultivation level had long reached the late stage of the Minor Taoist Master. Let's fight. The Sword Tao Lord looked at Li Feng and said faintly. The other party sneered. With a clanging sound, the quaint long sword in his hand flew out. There were Tao patterns circulating on the sword. Clearly it was a top-notch Tao artifact. Whoosh! The figures of the two great swordsmen instantly disappeared. In the next moment they met in the air. The two swords collided in an instant, bursting with the most dazzling sword light. Along with the sword light, there were also streaks of sharp sword chi. Sword chi swept out, tearing apart some of the warships in the surroundings. Li Feng didn't care about the vampires at all. Right now he only wanted to defeat the Sword Tao Lord. You're not a vampire. Which civilization are you from? The Sword Tao Lord asked indifferently. Purple Star, Overlord Sword Tao Lord Li Feng. Li Feng smiled. Purple Star. The Sword Path Lord made a mental note of it. Then, the Heaven Apex sword in his hand surged with boundless sword chi, forcing the other party to fly away. The Tianju sword flashed. Sword Tao Lord slashed out with his sword. Sword Art Swift Wind. The sword light was like the wind, and it was filled with a joyful and righteous aura. Wherever the storm passed, the void was torn apart by the sword chi. 3 Ultimate Overlord Sword, Human Extermination. Li Feng raised his hand and activated the monarch chi in his body, displaying his own profound mysteries. The surrounding Tao patterns appeared and interweaved on the long sword in his hand. The sword slashed out, and the overbearing sword light seemed to be able to destroy everything. A swift sword, a domineering sword. After the two completely different sword pressures collided, the sword chi that was set off swept out like a raging wave, surging in all directions. Li Feng and the Sword Tao Lord were also pushed back. Immediately after, the two of them unleashed their profound mysteries again. Sword Art, Myriad Stars Fall. The heavenly apex sword in Sword Tao Lord's hand immediately transformed into thousands of sword lights that spread out in all directions. Each sword light was like a star. Amidst the rumbling, streaks of sword light tore through the starry sky and rapidly flew out. It was as if 10,000 stars had fallen. Li Feng growled as an even more overbearing sword pressure erupted from his body. 3 Ultimate Overlord Sword, Earth Sinking. With a slash of the sword, sword light whistled, and an incomparably heavy and overbearing aura erupted, colliding with the power of the 10,000 stars. Bang bang bang. The starry sky exploded one after another. In a certain warship, a man wearing a purple robe and a jade crown slowly opened his eyes. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes. Who would have thought that there would be such a powerful sword cultivator in the Firmament Star who could fight Li Feng to a standstill? Unfortunately, I'm too old and my potential has been exhausted. If nothing unexpected happens, then I'll have no fate with the path to immortality. The man muttered to himself. It was extremely difficult to become an immortal. Even if it was an immortal seed, there was only a sliver of a chance. If it was not an immortal seed, then it was impossible to become an immortal. Besides, even an immortal seed had its limits. The older one was, the slimmer the chance of becoming an immortal. There was a saying in countless galaxies that even an immortal seed could not become an immortal within 100,000 years. In the starry sky, the battle between the Firmament Star's Tao Lords and the Blood Tribe's Tao Lords was getting more and more intense, especially Li Feng and Sword Tao Lord. These two top-notch sword cultivators' sword chi spread out, and no one could get close to them for tens of thousands of miles. Meanwhile, the two of them had accumulated their sword pressure to its peak. This is the last sword to decide the victor between us. Li Feng laughed. The Taoist runes spread out with him as the center, and the surrounding spiritual chi was converted into sword chi, whizzing towards him. Sword Tao Lord's eyes revealed an unprecedented seriousness. This person is young, but his sword cultivation is not any weaker than mine. I must give it my all for the next sword. Sword Tao Lord's sword chi was fully activated, and the Sword of the Heavens and Sword Chi Green Lotus Taoist physiques apparitions appeared accordingly. Sword art toppling the 9 heavens. Sword Tao Lord roared, and the sword chi on his body shot up into the sky, transforming into 9 giant sword shadows. The 9 swords slashed out, and each sword contained a completely different sword power. It could be a fire-based sword or an ice-based sword. The 9 swords slashed out at the same time, and its power was immense. Li Feng saw this and raised the sword in his hand. Have a taste of my strongest profundity. 3 Ultimate Overlord Sword Killer. Li Feng roared and slashed out with his sword. The terrifying sword ray contained millions of sword chi, and each sword chi contained mysterious Taoist runes. Millions of sword chi, millions of Taoist runes, and the power was enough to destroy the world. The two peerless sword Daos collided at the same time, and a terrifying impact erupted, causing several small planets to explode on the spot. Li Feng and Sword Tao Lord were the first to bear the brunt of the impact. The Tao Lords stopped attacking. They watched the battle, wanting to see the result. On a small asteroid fragment, Sword Tao Lord slowly stood up. The Sky Fiend Tao Lord, Jianghu Tao Lord, and the others were overjoyed when they saw this. However, the Sword Tao Lord fell to his knees and spat out blood. The countless Taoist runes on his body were flowing, and he was showing signs of collapsing. Sword Tao Lord. Oh no. The Luo River Tao Lord and the others were shocked. Far away, on a broken asteroid, Li Feng rushed out with blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. Although he was slightly injured, his aura did not diminish at all. On the contrary, his sword pressure became even more intense. Ah, sword cultivator, your combat strength is not bad, but unfortunately you're still no match for me. Li Feng looked at Sword Tao Lord and laughed. Not far away, Wisdom Sovereign smiled. The sudden appearance of the Tao Lords and Firmament Star had put a lot of pressure on him, but he could not help but feel relieved when he saw that Li Feng had won. Although this person's words are very unpleasant, his combat strength is very convincing. It was the right choice to seek help from Purple Star. On the other hand, the Luo River Tao Lord and the others looked extremely serious. Who is this person? How could he defeat Sword Tao Lord? No, he's not from the Blood Tribe. Sir, which civilization are you from? Why did you suddenly intervene in the matter between us and the Blood Tribe? Dharma Tao Lord asked directly. Li Feng sneered. So what if I intervene? What can you do about it? It's just a small Firmament Star. Do you think I, Purple Star, can't afford to offend you? Purple Star. Dharma Tao Lord's pupils shrank slightly. One of the 2 strongest immortal civilization in the Purple Gold Galaxy. Dharma Tao Lord had been trying to gather all kinds of information in the universe, especially the galaxy where he was located. He had heard of Purple Star before. D*eminent, why did Purple Star intervene all of a sudden? Dharma Tao Lord's heart sank. With Firmament Star's current level, it would be difficult to fight against the immortal civilization. The number of Tao Lords alone was 10 times that of Firmament Star. There were also great Tao Masters and even heavenly Tao Masters. Chapter 8:24. The Firmament Star did not expect the Purple Star's sudden intervention. This caused the myriad arts Dao Lord and the others to feel troubled. At this moment, Li Feng raised the sword in his hand with a cold smile on his face. He wanted to kill the heavily injured Sword Dao Master. Sword Cultivator, you are worthy of me remembering your name. Tell me your name. When I return, I will erect a monument for you. No name, no surname named after the sword. The Sword Dao Lord said coldly. Very well, Dai. Li Feng raised his hand. Just as the sword in his hand was about to descend, a beam of light shot over from afar. The golden beam of light tore through the sky. The terrifying power contained within it caused Li Feng's pupils to contract as he slashed out with his sword. Overlord Sword, Heaven Killer. The sword light burst forth. However, the attack that could defeat the Sword Dao Lord was pierced by the beam of light. The beam of light slammed into Li Feng and blasted him away. After that, the beam of light pierced through dozens of battleships. A series of sparks bloomed in the night sky. The wreckage of countless warships floated in the air, creating a horrifying scene. When the light dissipated, everyone could not help but be shocked. What kind of attack is this? There are no Dao patterns at all. This is a pure energy attack. What kind of person is capable of unleashing such terrifying energy? Everyone looked in the direction of the light beam. In the distance, a huge pitch-black warship flew over. It was covered in Dao patterns and the bow of the ship had a huge dragon head. A cannon was embedded in the dragon's mouth. The energy glow on the muzzle gradually dissipated. Clearly, the beam of light had come from the mouth of this cannon. Battleship. It's a warship. What a terrifying warship. That attack just now has probably surpassed the level of a young Dao Lord. Which civilization is this? Everyone present couldn't help but feel puzzled. However, in the next moment, the jaws of the Luo River Lord and the others dropped. They saw two familiar figures standing on the deck of the huge warship. Looks like we came at the right time. Even a peak minor Dao Lord couldn't withstand that blast. I think that person should be as dead as a doornail. On the battleship, a middle-aged man and a white-bearded old man stood with their chests puffed out, enjoying everyone's shocked gazes. Jianghu and the Array Dao Master. The River Dao Lord and the others exclaimed in shock. Their minds were filled with doubts and they couldn't react in time. Where did they get this warship from? The Luo River Sect Master and the others were puzzled. They didn't know anything about the advanced warships. Impossible. The Firmament Star's cultivation level can't possibly develop such a warship. What the hell is going on? King Ming's face was filled with disbelief. After fighting against the Firmament Star for so long, they knew very well what level of development the Firmament Star had reached. How could they possibly develop such a warship? That battleship was much more sophisticated than the best battleships on the Blood Origin Star. If there were any, they would have brought it out long ago. Did he get it from somewhere else? It was not just King Ming. The purple-robed young man who was observing the battle from within the warship was also a little surprised. The performance of this warship is not inferior to my Purple Star's highest-grade Purple Shadow warship. In fact, it's even better. How could such a warship exist in the Firmament Star? Perhaps, the rewards of this battle will be greater than I imagined. The purple-robed young man's eyes lit up. If he could obtain the manufacturing technology for this warship and bring it back to Purple Star, it would be a great contribution. Sword Path Leader, are you alright? The Dharma Path Leader and the others took the opportunity to protect the Sword Path Leader. Then everyone boarded the warship. Due to the shock from the cannon blast, the Blood King and the others did not dare to act rashly. B******. At this moment, an angry roar came from the wreckage of the warship. Li Feng rushed out, and there were streams of golden light circulating around him, manifesting countless mysterious runes. It can't be. That didn't kill him. The Scarlet Sun Path Leader was a little shocked. Look, there's a golden barrier around him. That must be some kind of defensive treasure, the Array Path Leader guessed. Then let's fire another shot at him. The Scarlet Sun Path Leader snorted. As he maneuvered the warship, the cannon in the dragon's mouth began to gather light again. A huge energy beam was gathering. Do you think you can hit me this time? Li Feng said coldly. At the same time, he felt a lingering fear in his heart. He would never have thought that there would be such a warship in the Firmament Star. If it were not for the defensive runic treasure he had on him, he would have been dead by now. Li Feng's figure turned into a stream of light and flew toward the warship. At this moment, a golden light barrier appeared on the warship. Li Feng's light barrier collided with it, causing a terrifying impact. Apart from its offensive capabilities, this warship's defensive capabilities are outstanding as well. Where did the Firmament Star get a warship like this? Li Feng was confused. Meanwhile, the energy in the cannon's mouth was fully charged. Just as Li Feng was about to dodge, a huge Buddha's avatar suddenly appeared behind him. It put its palms together and slapped at him. It was the Buddhist path leader. Two huge golden palms landed on the light barrier around him. However, this attack did not hurt his opponent. This was not the Buddhist path leader's goal. He only wanted to restrain Li Feng. Due to the influence of the golden Buddha's avatar, when Li Feng was held in midair by the palms, the energy beam on the warship had already exploded. With a loud bang, this attack landed on the runic light barrier in front of Li Feng and sent him flying again. This time, the runic light barrier shattered and Li Feng was hit by the remaining energy beam. Half of his body was almost crippled. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Li Feng's eyes were bloodshot. He took out a medicinal pill and swallowed it. His heavily injured body quickly recovered and soon he was back to his original state. Everyone was dumbfounded. F***ck me, this is cheating. What medicinal pill is this? Is this the power of the immortal technique civilization? The Downlords felt helpless. They could not find such a medicinal pill in the Firmament Star. However, the immortal technique civilization could. Just one medicinal pill was enough to show the difference between the Firmament Star and the other party. It was not just in terms of the number of experts, but also in other aspects of cultivation such as alchemy, smithing, runes and so on. You destroyed my runic treasure and made me lose a precious life-saving medicinal pill. All of you deserve to die. Li Feng raised his hand and slashed. The powerful sword chi landed on the warship's golden light barrier. There was a loud bang. The warship shook. This won't do. The warship's main cannon has been fired twice in a row. It has consumed a lot of energy. If we let them continue to attack, this energy barrier won't last long. The Formation Master said solemnly. Let's retreat first. The Luo River Dao Master said. All right. The warship turned around and was about to leave. However, they realized that they had already been surrounded by the Blood Tribe's warships. The warships fired energy beams, bombarding the Scarlet Sun Downlord and the others' warships. You want to leave? Dream on. Farsighted King said coldly. I guess all the experts of the Firmament Star are here. If I kill all of you, I won't have to worry about taking down the Firmament Star. Oh, is that so? At this moment, an indifferent voice was heard, echoing throughout the universe. Chapter 825. Oh, is that so? A calm voice suddenly echoed throughout the universe. Following that, a white sword ray instantly pierced through the air. It was a sword. A magnificent white jade longsword. The white jade sword pierced through the void like a ray of light, easily piercing through a battleship like it was a balloon. Amidst the explosion, the battleship exploded and sparks flew everywhere. However, the white jade sword did not stop at all. It pierced through the air towards the next warship, easily piercing through and destroying the warships one after another. After the first row of battleships had been destroyed, the white jade sword made a turn in the void and continued to attack the next row of battleships. Explosions were heard everywhere as the flames lit up the dark universe. Quick, activate the defensive chi barrier. It's already activated, but it doesn't work. The battleships of the third company have all been destroyed. What's going on? Who is it? Who is it? Everyone leave the battleships. One by one the Blood Tribe members panicked. They activated the energy barriers of the battleships, but it was useless against that sword. No matter what kind of defense they had, it was as fragile as a thin piece of paper in front of that sword, and it was easily pierced through. The Blood Tribe members even chose to abandon their battleships. Who is it? Who is it? This voice is... The Blood King's expressions were extremely grim. They looked into the distance and saw a person slowly walking out from the countless floating battleship wreckage amidst the flames. That person wore a long white robe and had waist-length black hair. The light from the flames illuminated his peerlessly handsome face, making him look dreamy. Beside him, the white jade sword flew back and forth, easily destroying the battleships and Blood Tribe members that stood in his way. It's him. The Blood King's pupils shrank when they saw who it was. Their bodies trembled violently, and their eyes were filled with disbelief and hatred. Chu Kuangren. How is it possible that he's not dead? This is impossible. 17 Downlords died in the battle at the Divine Blood Mountain. How is it possible that he's not dead? This is impossible. No one can survive an explosion of that magnitude. The explosion at the Divine Blood Mountain had almost destroyed the entire blood source planet. No one could survive an explosion of that magnitude. Not even the Tao Lords could. Everyone thought that Chu Kuangren was dead. But now, he had appeared in front of the Blood Kings and destroyed more than half of their warships with a wave of his hand. ****. During the battle at the Blood God Mountain, you brought disaster upon our bloodbath planet, and now you're here to stop us? Chu Kuangren. Go to hell. A Blood King clad in armor and wielding a blood-colored spear could no longer hold back his raging hatred. He charged towards Chu Kuangren and instantly attacked. Chu Kuangren continued to walk forward with a calm expression. He did not even bother to lift his eyelids at the Blood King that was charging towards him. The Kunwu sword, which was shuttling through the void, trembled slightly, made a turn, and flew toward Blood King at an incredible speed. Scram! The Blood King was infuriated. The spear in his hand blasted out a blood-colored beam of light at the Kunwu sword. However, the Kunwu sword was like a hot knife through butter. The blood-colored beam was instantly torn apart, and in the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of Blood King. The Blood King's eyes narrowed as he raised his spear to block the attack. With a clang, the spear was broken into two, and the Kunwu sword pierced through the Blood King's armor like a thin piece of paper. With a loud splash, a bloody mist bloomed in the air. That Blood King was killed on the spot. From the moment he attacked Chu Kuangren to the moment he was killed by the Kunwu sword, everything happened in the blink of an eye. Throughout the entire process, Chu Kuangren did not even look at his opponent, treating him like air. This scene caused King Ming and the others to be greatly shocked. That was a Blood King and a Tao Lord they were talking about. How could he be killed just like that? What? Not only did he not die in the battle at the Blood God Mountain, he even became so much stronger. What's going on? The Blood Kings were puzzled, but the techniques that Chu Kuangren had displayed were enough to deter them from acting rashly. Chu Kuangren walked towards the Sword Taoist Master, the Water Road Sect Master, and the others without any resistance. My king, you're here. The crowd was extremely excited. With Chu Kuangren's arrival, they felt much more at ease as if they had found their pillar of support. Not only that, but the Sword Taoist Master and the Water Road Sect Master had also noticed that Chu Kuangren's energy had become even more unfathomable. How long had it been, and the king's cultivation had improved again? Even if he was a king, that was a little too much. The crowd was speechless. Alright, it's good that you guys are alright. It was a little reckless of you to take the initiative to attack, Chu Kuangren said. The crowd looked ashamed. The Dharma Taoist Master said, Indeed, we were reckless. I didn't expect the Purple Star Civilization to intervene so suddenly. Leave the rest to me, Chu Kuangren said. He turned around and looked at Ming King and the others, then said blandly, If you retreat now, the Blood Origin planet will be able to prolong its feeble existence. Otherwise, I don't mind repeating the disaster of the battle on the Blood God Mountain. The Wisdom King and the others were so angry that their chests heaved. They looked at each other as if they wanted to eat them alive. It would have been better if Chu Kuangren did not mention it. Now that he did, they gritted their teeth in hatred at the thought of the disaster that the Blood Source planet was in. Looks like you're their leader. At that moment, Li Feng looked at Chu Kuangren with a cold gaze. The long sword in his hand was trembling slightly. He felt a threat from Chu Kuangren, one that was much stronger than the Sword Taoist Master. Chu Kuangren looked at Li Feng and activated the Spirit of Omniscience, Xiao AI, to analyze Li Feng's information. You're the one who injured the Sword Taoist Master, right? Chu Kuangren said. He had seen the injuries on the Sword Taoist Master earlier, and the residual sword chi was the same as the one on Li Feng. So what if it's me? Do you want revenge? Li Feng sneered. Although he felt threatened, Li Feng was not afraid. To be more precise, I want to kill you. Chu Kuangren took a step forward and walked out of the warship's defensive chi barrier. Li Feng raised his long sword high when he saw Chu Kuangren walking out. Let's see what you've got then. His sword slashed down, unleashing the most domineering sword chi. Sword Overlord's Triultimate Heaven Slayer. The sword chi was billions of meters long, as if it was going to destroy the world. The surrounding stars trembled. Chu Kuangren looked extremely small in the face of that sword attack. However, he only raised his hand lightly. In that instant, the entire world seemed to be shaking, and shocking waves were set off in the void space. That seemingly thin and weak body erupted with an unimaginably terrifying power. There were no fluctuations of Emperor's chi, mind power, or Taoist energy. It was just an ordinary punch, but it instantly caused the void to collapse, and an extremely majestic fist wind swept out. The billion-meter-long sword qi was torn apart by the fist and was swept back towards Li Feng. What? Li Feng was shocked as he channeled all his energy to defend himself. However, it was useless. The fist qi and sword qi swept back and attacked his body in a frenzy, causing the Taoist patterns on his body to shatter one after another. His flesh was cut by the sword qi and his bones were crushed by the fist qi. The sound of his bones cracking could be heard continuously. Chapter 826. He destroyed the sword qi with a single punch. The fist qi and sword qi mixed together and landed on Li Feng's body, shattering the Taoist patterns on his body. Then, his flesh was cut by the sword qi and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. His emperor's body was soon riddled with holes. How is this possible? Li Feng was sent flying and landed on the wreckage of a battleship. His face was filled with fear. A single punch. Chu Kuangren had destroyed his strongest sword technique and severely injured him without using any Taoist or emperor's essence. Chu Kuangren had only used his physical body. What kind of terrifying physical strength was that? The eternal stellar physique. You didn't disappoint me. Chu Kuangren smiled. During this period of time, he had been continuously absorbing planets near the firmament star. Finally, he had upgraded his astral immortal body to the mastery realm. His physical strength had also skyrocketed. Now, he could easily kill the little Taoist master with just his physical body alone. Who the hell are you? Li Feng looked at Chu Kuangren as he coughed out blood. Sky Lord. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. He was already calling himself the Sky Lord. Truth be told, with the firmament star's heavenly Tao's support and his current strength, it was no exaggeration to call him the Sky Lord. As soon as he said that, Chu Kuangren took a step forward, intending to take his opponent's life. But at this moment, a beam of Emperor Qi suddenly shot toward him from the Blood Tribe's main warship with peerless might. Instead of dodging, Chu Kuangren unleashed a punch. With a loud bang, the Emperor's Qi was shattered. However, Li Feng did not dare to stay any longer. Seizing this opportunity, he channeled his remaining strength and dashed away. If I want to stay, no one can escape from me. Chu Kuangren snorted. The Emperor's Qi circulated, Taoist patterns intertwined, and the mini-world appeared. It turned into a purple chain that bound Li Feng in the blink of an eye. Get your ass back here. Chu Kuangren grabbed the chain and yanked it hard. Li Feng's body was suddenly dragged before him uncontrollably. He grabbed the back of Li Feng's head and channeled his Emperor's Qi. Stop. A cold shout rang out from the distant Blood Tribe's main warship. However, Chu Kuangren turned a deaf ear to it. With a raise of his hand, a terrifying Emperor Qi burst forth, blasting the other party's head into smithereens. Even his soul was destroyed. Li Feng's body and soul had been completely destroyed. Boom. A terrifying aura erupted from the Blood Tribe's main battleship. This aura was mixed with extreme fury, almost as if it wanted to burn the world. The expressions of everyone present couldn't help but change. Those with weaker cultivations almost prostrated on the ground. Such a terrifying aura. He's at least at the peak of a minor Tao Lord. Moreover, it's most likely not an ordinary peak minor Tao Lord. The eyes of the Tao Master of 10,000 Laws, the Tao Master of Luo River, and the others turned extremely grim. Chu Kuangren was the only one who remained unfazed. He looked at the warship and saw a purple ray of light flying out from it, which then transformed into a young man. This young man was dressed in a luxurious purple robe and had a handsome face. At this time, when he looked at Chu Kuangren, his eyes were filled with an icy chill. This prince told you to stop. Are you deaf? The young man said coldly. He wants to kill me, so I'll kill him. This is a battlefield. If he doesn't die, then I'll die. Yet you're telling me to stop? Are you stupid? Chu Kuangren sneered. Both of them were at each other's throats, neither willing to back down. At the same time, Chu Kuangren had the spirit of omniscience, Xiao AI, start to analyze this person before him so that he could learn more about him. Very well. Initially, I only accepted this mission to help the Blood Tribe because I was bored, so I wanted to kill some time. I didn't expect to meet a celestial seed like you. Interesting. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm the 10th sequence deity of the Purple Star Temple of Crepe Myrtle, Zi Wuheng. Zi Wuheng said indifferently. Chu Kuangren had more or less understood without him saying anything. As for the celestial seed, Chu Kuangren also knew what it meant. In the past, he had met with an immortal's consciousness and learned about these things. Why is the purple star interfering in the matters between the firmament star and the blood tribe? You don't need to know about this. Since you're standing in my way, only death awaits you. As soon as he finished speaking, an extremely powerful surge of Emperor's Qi erupted from Zi Wuheng's body and enveloped the entire area. Do you think you're worthy of my life? Similarly, a powerful surge of Emperor's Qi and Taoist aura erupted from Chu Kuangren's body and clashed with Zi Wuheng's domineering aura. Vaguely, Chu Kuangren seemed to be able to suppress his opponent. Ultimate Emperor's Qi and Ultimate Tao. You're indeed a celestial seed, Zi Wuheng said in shock. There were many criteria to determine whether a cultivator was a celestial seed or not. One of them was that the cultivator's Tao or Emperor's Qi had reached the ultimate realm. However, Chu Kuangren had reached the ultimate realm in both. That surprised Zi Wuheng. After all, he had only reached the ultimate realm in his Emperor's Qi. As for Tao, it was much harder than building a foundation. Could it be that he's a celestial seed that's on a higher level than me? At that thought, Zi Wuheng's expression darkened. How can a tiny firmament star give birth to someone like that? Then the Emperor's Qi on his body surged and the surrounding starlight frantically converged towards him, merging with his Emperor's Qi and forming a giant palm. Star-picking palm. The palm was unleashed, containing the power to pluck stars. Facing that attack, Chu Kuangren did not retreat. Instead, he raised his hand and unleashed a punch, unleashing the ultimate invincible technique. Cosmos Reversal. The energy that overturned the world formed from the fusion of the three ultimate energies was vast and mighty, and it surged through the world as it collided head-on with the star-seizing palm. Amidst the explosion, a large portion of the void shattered. Zi Wuheng's expression changed. Ultimate technique. It was not just Tao but also Emperor's Qi. This person had mastered the ultimate technique too. After the collision of the ultimate techniques, Zi Wuheng was pushed back by the powerful impact. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren stood still. So this is the celestial seed? How disappointing. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Let's try this. With the Emperor's Qi circulating around Zi Wuheng's body, his figure constantly changed as if he had merged with the void of the universe. It was a mysterious movement technique. Zi Wuheng split into 2, then 4, and in the blink of an eye, he had transformed into a total of 64 figures that surrounded Chu Kuangren. 64 celestial dart fingers. Zi Wuheng let out a low roar, and the 64 figures attacked from 64 different directions at the same time. Surges of finger qi shot towards Chu Kuangren from all directions. One thought, silence, death of the heavens and earth. Chu Kuangren's mind power and Emperor's Qi merged together, and circles of light waves spread with him as the center. The surroundings fell into an eerie silence. The light waves violently collided with the finger qi, shattering the 64 figures around him. However, after those figures were shattered, Zi Wuheng's real body reappeared. He attacked with his palm and the star-picking palm was unleashed again. The palm grabbed at Chu Kuangren with a mighty force. One thought, myriad deity calamity fire lotus. His mind power and Emperor's Qi intertwined, and the fire lotus appeared. The flames were not ordinary flames but the godly phoenix flames. With the help of the godly phoenix flames, the power of Chu Kuangren's technique increased significantly, and it directly landed on the star-picking palm. The star-picking palm was shattered by the flames, and a majestic wave of flames spread. Zi Wuheng was the first to be hit, and he was immediately sent flying. The Blood Kings were dumbfounded. That was a celestial seed from the purple star. There were not many celestial seeds in the entire purple gold galaxy. Chu Kuangren had crushed it. Chapter 827. Amidst the vast sea of stars. Chu Kuangren had single-handedly crushed the immortal seed. The immortal seed Zi Wuheng stared at Chu Kuangren with a gloomy look in his eyes. Apart from the top 5 purple star sequences, this is the first time I've been suppressed to such an extent by another junior Taoist master. He was infuriated. The Emperor's Qi on his body surged and a mysterious Tao ripple spread. That surge of Taoist fluctuation made Chu Kuangren squint his eyes. That's the fluctuation of an immortal technique. Ever since I came to understand this technique 1,000 years ago, I've never used it aside from sparring with other immortal seeds. Chu Kuangren, you have the right to force me to use this technique. Zi Wuheng said coldly. The stars around him shook, and the starlight in the sky gathered towards him. Immediately the starlight shone resplendently and dazzlingly. At this moment, Ziwuhan seemed to have transformed into the brightest star in the universe. His brilliant starlight caused the surrounding stars to dim in comparison. Then let's fight immortal magic with immortal magic, Chu Kuangren said indifferently. As he raised his hand, the Kunwu sword flew over from afar. With the sword in hand, a majestic sword pressure that was many times stronger than Li Feng's swept out in all directions like a raging wave, crazily attacking the surroundings. Within this sword pressure, a mysterious fluctuation of the Tao appeared. Fluctuations of the immortal Tao. Ziwuhan's eyes widened. An immortal spell. This is impossible. How could a tiny firmament star have an immortal technique? Chu Kuangren said nothing. The only response he got was the increasingly terrifying sword pressure. The sword pressure surged and shook the universe. Ziwuhan stopped thinking about it and focused on circulating his celestial art with all his might. Two completely different immortal arts collided, and a peerlessly powerful pressure enveloped the surroundings. Even the Tao Lord felt a little uncomfortable. The Blood Clan members were lying on the ground, unable to move. How terrifying. Is this an immortal spell? It's just a Taoist Lord's cultivation base that activates an immortal technique, and it already has such a degree of pressure. If an immortal were to make a move, how terrifying would it be? The Tao Master of Myriad Laws and the others were horrified. At the same time, they were even more certain of their decision. The most important thing for a civilization was to have its own immortal. Without immortals, no matter how powerful a civilization was, it would eventually turn to dust. Immortal magic, celestial river apocalypse. The starlight on Ziwuhan's body had reached its peak, converging into a Milky Way that stretched for tens of thousands of miles towards Chu Kuangren. Revered Emperor Sword art, unrivaled in the universe. The boundlessly domineering and majestic Golden Emperor Dharma idol appeared. There was a golden sword chi circulating in his palm. Chu Kuangren struck out with his sword. The sword chi in the Imperial Dharma form's palm whistled out. Boom. The sword chi and the resplendent river of stars collided and exploded. An unprecedented shockwave spread out, crashing into the surrounding stars. Bang bang bang. Some of the asteroids that were not protected by the heavenly Tao exploded on the spot. The flames produced by the planet's explosion lit up the universe, and waves of fire swept out. At this moment, the cold universe seemed to have a temperature. The sword chi collided with the astral river. The sword chi disintegrated, and the astral river also shattered. Both sides seemed to have fought for a long time, but also seemed to have only lasted for an instant. In the end, tens of thousands of miles of the star river shattered. There was still a remnant of the golden sword chi that swept towards Ziwuhan. What? Ziwuhan couldn't believe his eyes. His immortal technique was at a disadvantage. Seeing that the sword chi was sweeping towards him, Ziwuhan pushed his strength to the limit, and a golden armor appeared on his body. It was some kind of defensive Taoist weapon. Boom. The remnant sword chi smashed onto the Taoist weapon, shattering it in half. Ziwuhan was also blasted away like a meteor. I can't stay here any longer. I need to leave. After witnessing the power of Chu Kuangren's immortal technique, Ziwuhan immediately lost the will to fight. His figure turned into a stream of light and escaped into the distance. To prevent Chu Kuangren from chasing after him, he even took out an escape treasure. With his speed, he disappeared into the end of the universe in the blink of an eye. That's quite a fast runner. Chu Kuangren did not expect the immortal seed to be so decisive. Then he looked at the far-sighted ruler and the others. With a thought, thousands of spiritual power weapons gathered and attacked without any room for negotiation. In an instant, countless blood tribe cultivators perished under the spiritual power weapons. The far-sighted ruler was dumbfounded the moment Ziwuhan escaped. The external help that they had paid such a huge price for was gone just like that. Chu Kuangren, the firmament star shouldn't have someone like you. The far-sighted ruler roared indignantly. The Blood Origin planet and the firmament star had been at war for more than 10 eras, but it ended in just a few years. It was all because of Chu Kuangren. If not for him, the Blood Origin planet would not have fallen to such a state. Chu Kuangren, you'll die a horrible death. D*Eminent, the Blood God's awakening will never forgive you. The Blood King swore and cursed Chu Kuangren. However, Chu Kuangren did not care at all. His cold gaze was fixed on all the blood tribe cultivators at the scene, and his spiritual power was like a storm. Not long after, countless blood tribe cultivators including the Blood Kings were slaughtered by him. However, only one person was left. It was a member of the Blood Spirit tribe. He knelt in front of Chu Kuangren, unfazed by the deaths of his kind. He was Lunar Jianghu. He was the Moon Clan's heavenly honorable. At the same time, he was also a spy that Chu Kuangren had left in the Blood tribe under his soul mastery slave seal. Chu Kuangren brought Lunar Jianghu to the battleship. Let's go back. The Scarlet Sun Taoist nodded and returned to the Firmament Star. All that was left behind were the battleship wreckage and corpses. They floated in space like a cold graveyard. On Firmament Star, in a fortress, Chu Kuangren was asking Lunar Jianghu some questions. For example, why did the Purple Star intervene in the matter between Firmament Star and the Blood tribe? The Blood Kings used a heaven-seizing technique as a price to ask for the Purple Star's help. After the Purple Star agreed, they sent out an immortal seed. Heaven-seizing technique. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up when he heard those words. When Chu Kuangren conversed with the ancient immortals, he had talked about the many powerful civilizations in the universe and their development. Among them, he had mentioned the heaven-seizing technique. The so-called heaven-seizing technique was the technique to seize the heavenly Tao. It was also the key to the development of many powerful civilizations. By seizing the heavenly Tao of other planets with life, they could strengthen their own heavenly Tao. When the heavenly Tao became stronger, the civilizations under its protection would naturally become stronger as well. I didn't expect the Bloodgore Star to have a heaven-seizing technique. How surprising. Chu Kuangren pondered. The heaven-seizing technique was extremely rare. Not every civilization had it. Most civilizations' development only involved plundering other civilizations' resources. They could not do anything about the heavenly Tao. However, it was undeniable that in this universe, the truly powerful civilizations all had their own heaven-seizing technique. That's right. The Bloodgore Star's heaven-seizing technique was found by the Blood God in a historical site. Later on, the Blood God used this technique to forcefully devour the Bloodgore Star's heavenly Tao in order to break through to the heavenly Tao Master's realm. However, he was severely injured and has yet to wake up. Lunar Jianghu said. No wonder I didn't sense any heavenly Tao fluctuations when I went to the Bloodgore Star. It was devoured by the Blood God himself. Chu Kuangren finally understood. After that, he asked a few more questions. After Lunar Jianghu left, Chu Kuangren noticed a figure pacing back and forth outside his door. That person was Yan Honghua, the young general of Fortress Number 17, which was the fortress that Chu Kuangren was currently in. Chapter 828. Honghua Yan, what is she doing here? Chu Kuangren could not help but be curious. He walked up to her and asked, Honghua Yan, what are you doing here? Honghua Yan looked at Chu Kuangren walking towards her and was at a loss. Chu Kuangren's mind was filled with question marks. Was she resisting him? It did not seem like it. Was she shy because he was too handsome? Impossible. He knew Honghua Yan's personality very well. She was a heroine. Besides, it was not their first time meeting. Brother Chu, are you a human king? Honghua Yan asked curiously, looking at Chu Kuangren expectantly. Chu Kuangren suddenly realized something. He remembered now. Honghua Yan was a fan of the human king. She even had a biography of the human king that she read from time to time. Was he not a human king? No wonder she was acting so strangely. She had met her idol. Yes, I am. Chu Kuangren nodded. Honghua Yan was even more excited. She did not expect the human king that she had admired for so long to be Chu Kuangren, and that she had even fought alongside him. This was simply unimaginable. It was like a dream. King, is Chu Kuangren your reincarnation? Yes. I heard that you're going to build a nation. Is that true? Yes, the human race must be unified. Only by concentrating our strength can we develop an extraterrestrial civilization. Building a nation is a must. Is there anything I can help you with? Cultivate well and you'll be a pillar of the firmament in the future. Chu Kuangren and Honghua chatted for a while. Even after Chu Kuangren left, Honghua was still staring at his back. It took her a while to recover. The Ghost Blade Heavenly Honorable walked to her side and said with a smile, Huar, now that you've met your king, does that mean your wish has been fulfilled? Sigh, I didn't expect Brother Chu to be the king. Honghua Yan suddenly felt a little melancholic. The Ghost Blade Heavenly Honorable was stunned. What? You don't look happy. Is the king not as good as you think? No, the king is very good and Brother Chu is also very outstanding. But it is precisely because of this that I feel ashamed of my own inferiority. My idol is so outstanding but I am so ordinary. I feel that I am a little unworthy of liking him. Yan Honghua, one of the youngest Empyreans in history to reach the Empyrean realm before the age of 100, said with melancholy. The corner of Ghost Blade's mouth twitched. Looks like I'll have to work even harder in my cultivation from now on. I'll strive to be of help to the king as soon as possible and resolve his problems. Yan Honghua took a deep breath and said solemnly. In the universe, a stream of light landed on an uninhabited planet. Zi Wuheng's expression turned ugly. Damn it, how could a tiny firmament star give birth to such an immortal seed? Even I'm no match for it. I have to think of a way to get back at them. With the resources of the Purple Star civilization, it would not be a problem for them to deal with Firmament Star. However, he did not want to ask for help from the Purple Star civilization. The reason was simple. If those guys find out that I suffered such a huge loss in the Firmament Star, they'll probably laugh at me. I have to get back at him personally. For some cultivators, face was sometimes more important than anything else. Zi Wuheng, on the other hand, was someone who valued his own face. He had accepted the mission to attack Firmament Star. If he were to return with a face full of dirt and ask for reinforcements, how would he survive in the future? I can't go back to the Purple Star civilization for the time being. Moreover, I have to settle things with Firmament Star as soon as possible. Otherwise, if the higher-ups of the Purple Star civilization find out that I've failed my mission, it'll be too late. What should I do then? Zi Wuheng pondered. Chu Kuangren was too powerful. He was no match for him. He had to find other help. That was for sure. However, there were not many advanced cultivation civilizations in the Purple Gold Galaxy. Most of them were under the jurisdiction of the Purple Star and Golden Star immortal civilizations. As for the others, there were not many that could deal with Firmament Star. Not to mention a mere immortal seed. Not to mention someone who was willing to help him. Blood Source Planet. Blood Deity. Zi Wuheng thought of something and murmured, the Blood Source Planet and Firmament Star are irreconcilable enemies. Although the Blood Kings of the Blood Source Planet are all dead, they still have a top-notch Taoist master, the Blood Deity. If the Blood Deity appears, dealing with Chu Kuangren will be a piece of cake. The only thing we need to do now is to awaken the Blood Deity. A Taoist master was the top combat power of a civilization. In the Purple Gold Galaxy, there were not many Taoist masters, let alone a top-notch Taoist master. As long as the heavenly Taoist did not show up, a Taoist master like him could do whatever he wanted in the Purple Gold Galaxy. From Zi Wuheng's point of view, Chu Kuangren was just a late-stage minor Taoist master. Although he had the strength to fight someone of a higher level, he would not be able to deal with a Taoist master, let alone a blood deity. Zi Wuheng's figure flashed as he took out a battleship from his yin and yang ring. He then boarded the battleship and headed towards the Blood Source Planet. A few months later, Zi Wuheng arrived at the Blood Source Planet. The Blood Source Planet no longer had a Blood King, and most of its emperors and heavenly honorables had perished in the battle against Firmament Star. No one could stop Zi Wuheng here. After some effort, he finally found the place where the Blood Deity was sleeping. It was 300,000 feet beneath the Blood Source Planet. In a dark, sunless underground space, a red-haired figure wearing a blood-red robe floated in midair. His hair was as red as blood, and he had horns on his head. His face was handsome and charming. Blood Deity, I finally found you. Zi Wuheng let out a smile. Then he took out a medicinal pill with a pained look in his eyes. A7 Transformations Golden Pill. This Taoist pill is extremely rare even on the Purple Star Planet. It's a top-notch Taoist pill second only to the immortal pills. Since the Blood Deity had devoured the heavenly Tao, he had suffered a backlash and was severely injured. It would not be easy to wake him up. If he was still injured, even 10 top-notch Taoist pills would be useless. However, after countless years of hibernation, the Blood Deity had recovered a lot. This top-notch Taoist pill was just a final push. If I can awaken the Blood Deity to help me defeat Chu Kuangren, then I can extract the origins of his immortal techniques and the battleship manufacturing technology. This 7 Transformations Golden Pill will be worth it. Zi Wuheng took a deep breath and flicked the Taoist pill in his hand. It landed on top of the Blood Deity and exploded. Countless golden light dots floated in the void before they entered the Blood Deity's body and were absorbed by him instinctively. Not long after, the Blood Deity opened his eyes. At that moment, a terrifying surge of energy emanated from his body. The entire underground, the entire Blood Source Planet trembled. To have such energy fluctuations as soon as he's awakened. Rumor has it that the blood deity tried to devour the heavenly Tao but failed in his attempt to become the heavenly Tao master. Looks like that's not entirely true. I'm afraid he's only one step away from becoming the heavenly Tao master. Zi Wuheng said in amazement. You've finally awakened after such a long slumber. Young human, what are you planning to do? A hoarse voice was heard. It was the blood deity. He looked at Zi Wuheng with his domineering aura and asked, "Before you ask that question, let's take a look at the blood source planet first." Zi Wuheng said indifferently. The blood deity's divine thoughts circulated and covered half of the blood source planet. When he saw the current situation of the blood source planet, the blood deity's face turned extremely gloomy. Chapter 829. How did my bloodbath planet end up like this? Where are the blood kings? Where did they go? The blood deity's expression was extremely grim. His uncontrollable anger made him lose control of the energy fluctuations around him. The terrifying aura made Zi Wuheng feel suffocated. The entire bloodbath planet was shaking. What's going on? The blood deity looked at Zi Wuheng and asked. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. No matter who it was, if they found out that their house had been messed up by others after they had slept, they would not have a good expression. What happened on the bloodbath planet has nothing to do with me. I'm one of the purple star sequences, Zi Wuheng. Zi Wuheng said calmly. To prevent the blood deity from attacking him, he revealed his identity first. Sure enough, the blood deity's expression calmed down a little when he heard that he was a purple star sequence. So you're a purple star holy seed? Yes. Zi Wuheng nodded slightly and told him everything that happened on the bloodbath planet. After listening, the blood deity's eyes turned cold. Firmament star, right? I'll definitely avenge this. Then I'll wait and see. Zi Wuheng smiled faintly. In Firmament star. The preparations for the nation's establishment were almost complete. Now that the human forces had declared their allegiance, all that was left was the coronation ceremony. Rian had already made the necessary preparations. Come, sect leader. Try this on, Elder Rian said as she held a luxurious robe in her hands. Chu Kuangren's mouth twitched. He looked to the side and saw a huge pile of clothes of various styles. Some were solemn, some were elegant, and some were gorgeous, with different styles. There were gold, purple, white, and a myriad of colors. Elder Rian, is there a need to go through so much trouble? I think the ones you saw earlier are fine. Just pick one. No way. Elder Rian rejected immediately. This is the coronation ceremony. When the time comes, you'll be crowned the king of the entire human race, the ruler of a nation. This is much grander than the coronation ceremony. How can you dress so casually? Come try this one on. Chu Kuangren had no choice but to try it on. With a thought, he unleashed the space conveyor technique, and the luxurious robe in Elder Rian's hand was transported to his body. It was a white luxurious robe with golden edges. There were patterns of dragons and phoenixes on it, making it look extremely noble. Coupled with Chu Kuangren's extraordinary temperament, he looked like a supreme immortal emperor. Elder Rian was mesmerized by the scene. But then she came back to her senses and looked at the luxurious robe. Sect leader is so good looking that you look good in everything you wear. It's really not easy to find a suitable one. Let's change to another one. You still want to trade? Change. The corner of Chu Kuangren's mouth twitched. I say, Elder Rian, don't tell me you just want to watch me change my clothes? Elder Rian's face reddened. Of course not. The same goes for all of you, right? Chu Kuangren looked at Lan Yu, Shang Qingxue, Junyi, and the others beside him. The few of them lowered their heads and pretended not to hear anything. However, the image recording stone in Shang Qingxue's hand flashed and automatically saved Chu Kuangren's image. Chu Kuangren was speechless. Then he tried on a few more clothes before he was finally done. After he left, Elder Rian, Junyi, Jin Fian, and even Lan Yu could not help but gather around Shang Qingxue excitedly. How many pictures have you taken? Remember to send me a copy when you get back. This one looks so good. It's so beautiful. And this one too. Qingxue, you did a great job. The ladies looked at the image recording stone in Shang Qingxue's hand excitedly. Not long after, a few precious images of the human emperor were leaked out from the Black Heaven sect and sold for a high price. Inside the towering Heaven Palace, Chu Kuangren was sitting cross-legged with a silver-white disc in his hand. The disc had many interconnected circles, making it look very mysterious. It was the temporal mirror. He was currently trying to understand the mysteries of the temporal mirror. Now that he had fully understood the mysteries of the first 4 circles in the temporal mirror, he had made great progress in the space-time Tao. Besides that, he could also use the temporal mirror for the first time. This supreme treasure was very powerful. Even with Chu Kuangren's current cultivation level, it was still very difficult for him to use it. It was a trump card. Chu Kuangren had never used it other than to break the space-time Master God's space-time cage in ancient times. I'm afraid this item is even more powerful than some immortal weapons. Chu Kuangren murmured. Although he had never seen an immortal weapon before, he had met some ancient immortals and learned about the power of immortal weapons from them. He had also secretly compared them. In addition to the prizes from the fantasy roulette, the god-tier items had reached the realm of immortals, and the temporal mirror was a supreme god-tier prize. Could it be a supreme immortal? Chu Kuangren did not think too much about that realm for now. He would slowly find out the answer in the future. Now let's build up the empire. Chu Kuangren thought to himself. He could not help but shake his head and smile when he saw the gorgeous white robe hanging on the clothes rack beside him. The coronation ceremony was held as planned. Before anyone knew it, the Black Heaven sect was no longer just the Black Heaven sect. High walls had been built around it and skyscrapers had been built. With the Black Heaven sect as the center, the area within a radius of 1,000,000 kilometers had turned into a majestic city. This was also the empire's capital. It was called the Black Heaven City. Inside the Black Heaven City, carriages and horses were everywhere. Cultivators from all walks of life had arrived, and even rare beasts that were rarely seen appeared. Aside from the humans in the firmament star, the demonic beasts had also come to watch the ceremony. After all, Chu Kuangren was not only a human ruler but also the undisputed strongest cultivator in the entire firmament star. At the center of the Black Heaven City, a tall platform rose from the ground. The 4 sides of the platform were engraved with all kinds of wondrous landscapes and auspicious beasts. This was the Sky Platform. Below the platform, the Chaos Taoist Master, Flowing Water Tao Master, Dharma Taoist Master, Wu, and the others were whispering to each other. Aside from these Taoist masters, there were also a large number of emperors around them. Tens of millions of soldiers stood in a square formation, looking solemn and dignified. Music, go! Elder Rian bellowed. Immediately, the soldiers around them sounded their horns. The majestic sound reverberated through the clouds. Along with this sound, a beautiful godly phoenix soared into the sky from afar. Wherever it went, the sky was dyed red. On top of the godly phoenix, a handsome figure in a white robe stood with his hands behind his back like an immortal king. Everyone looked at that figure with yearning and longing in their eyes. Chu Kuangren had arrived on the godly phoenix and arrived at the sky platform. He raised his hand and took out the human ruler's seal. When the seal was unleashed, a large amount of golden light surged and the sea of clouds rumbled. That was a human path treasure. Then Chu Kuangren took out a scroll with a bunch of words written on it. They were all the founding proclamations that Elder Rian had prepared beforehand. The heavens above, the earth below. Since the birth of the firmament human tribe, it has been 49 eras, and countless sages have emerged. Today, Chu Kuangren of the human tribe wishes to build a unified empire. The name of the empire shall be called Firmament, the era shall be called Era Opening, and the capital shall be Black Heaven City. May the heavenly Tao bless the human tribe for eternity and eternal prosperity. Chapter 830. Finally, it was done. Chu Kuangren looked at the 10,000-word scroll in his hand and thought to himself, Elder Rian sure knows how to write. After he finished reading the proclamation in his hand, auspicious clouds suddenly surged in the sky, followed by all sorts of beautiful transformations. Dragons and phoenixes, cheilants treading the sea, golden lotuses sprouting from the ground, all sorts of transformations dazzled everyone. With the heavenly Tao as witness, the firmament empire is formed. The voice of the heavenly Tao appeared. Everyone was dumbfounded. The heavenly Tao had spoken. One had to know that even when the blood tribe had attacked and the heavenly Tao had been smashed into smithereens, it hadn't said a single word. Now, the heavenly Tao had spoken up for the establishment of the firmament empire. What did that mean? The establishment of the firmament empire meant a lot to the heavenly Tao. So you can speak now. Why didn't you say anything when I was killing you back then? Chu Kuangren muttered to himself. No one else heard what he said. However, the heavenly Tao seemed to have sensed it. The heavenly Tao energy within Chu Kuangren's body suddenly trembled as if it was dissatisfied. Of course, the others did not know about Chu Kuangren's interaction with the heavenly Tao. They were still shocked by the heavenly Tao's voice. The firmament empire is formed. Chu Kuangren shall be the first king, the firmament ruler. How dare you call the king by his name? Oh, I'll be more careful next time, Chu Kuangren chuckled. Suddenly his eyes flickered. He could feel an incredibly powerful aura approaching from outside the morning heavens formation. This aura contains the power of the blood source. Is it the blood tribe? Chu Kuangren's eyes flashed coldly as he transmitted a message to Elder Ruyan. Elder Ruyan, I'll leave the aftermath to you. With that, his figure disappeared from the Sky Tower platform. The Dharma Taoist master and the others seemed to have sensed something too as they looked towards the sky. Follow him. All right. Humph, these blood breeds are really like ghosts that won't go away. Firmament star, outside the morning heavens. The blood tribe's strongest cultivators, the blood god and Ziwuheng, arrived together. They were already close to the 17th fortress. The blood god's eyes flashed coldly. Let's start with the people here. As he raised his hand, boundless blood origin force gushed out, enveloping half of the starry sky. Empyrean Ghost Blade Yen Honghua and the others rushed out of Fortress 17. They couldn't help but be aghast at the sight of the massive amount of blood source power. Not even 10 blood kings could produce such a blood origin power. How could there be such a strong warrior hiding in the blood origin star? Not good, the fortress's great array formation can't withstand this attack. Boom, boom. Under the influence of the blood origin force, the fortress's grand array shook violently. Rather, it was merely the oppressive might. If this attack were to land, not to mention the grand spell formation of the fortress, the entire fortress would be destroyed. Blood star falls. A cold shout resounded throughout the universe. The blood origin power around the blood god gathered abruptly and transformed into a huge blood-colored star that blasted toward the 17th fortress. The terrifying power caused the void to collapse. The entire fortress was enveloped in that boundless bloody light. It's over? Empyrean Ghost Blade and the others couldn't help feeling despair. Countless cultivators lost all thoughts of escaping. In the face of such terrifying power, there was no way out. Next to the blood god, Ziwuheng was speechless. So this is the power of a top great Tao Lord. It's really extraordinary. Compared to me, it's several levels stronger. His eyes revealed a hint of passion. He would have such power sooner or later. He was an immortal seed. His growth potential was much stronger than the blood gods. If even the blood god could reach such a level, there was no reason why he, an immortal seed, couldn't do the same. I'm afraid the cultivators in this fortress are going to be wiped out. Ziwuheng shook his head without a trace of pity in his eyes. For him, this kind of thing was already a common occurrence. In the universe, the casualties of some powerful civilizations in a war were often measured in billions or even hundreds of billions. What was a mere fortress to them? Just as the 17th fortress was about to be destroyed, a dazzling golden sword light that stretched for billions of miles suddenly rumbled and smashed into the blood-colored star with unparalleled power. The collision caused by the two enormous forces set off a terrifying cosmic gale, causing the surrounding planets to tremble. Fortress 17 was also shaking violently, but compared to being destroyed, this outcome was already many times better. Empyrean Ghost Blade and the others looked towards the source of the sword light. They saw a handsome man in a luxurious white robe, a jade crown on his head, and a white jade longsword hanging from his waist. Every move he made was like an immortal king descending from the heavens. It's the king. Isn't today the coronation ceremony? The king must have sensed that we're in danger. Chu Kuangren's arrival calmed everyone down. However, the Ghost Blade Heavenly Venerable still had a serious look in his eyes. This power is much stronger than the Blood King. Can the king handle it? He definitely can. Yen Honghua said with a determined look. To her, the king was invincible. In space, the blood god's eyes narrowed. Oh, I can't believe someone in Firmament Star can block my attack. This fluctuation is an immortal technique. He was a little excited. An immortal technique. It was something that only the immortal technique civilization had. If he could master it, it would be a great help to his cultivation. Then he looked at Chu Kuangren with a strange look in his eyes. You must be Chu Kuangren. I can sense the fluctuation of the heavenly Tao within your body. It seems that you've mastered the heavenly Tao and are the Firmament Star's master. Ziwuheng was a little shocked. He did not know that Chu Kuangren had mastered the heavenly Tao, the immortal seed and the heavenly Tao's enhancement. Did this guy not use his full strength when he fought me? He felt like he was being looked down upon. Deep down he was even more furious. However, Chu Kuangren did not care about his emotions. He looked at the blood god with a strange look in his eyes. The blood god could sense the heavenly Tao within his body. Naturally, Chu Kuangren could as well. He had a vague guess. Shall AI analyze him? Yes. Then information about the blood god appeared in his mind. It also confirmed Chu Kuangren's guess. So it's the blood god, the powerful cultivator who devoured the heavenly Tao of the blood source planet. Is he a peak great Tao lord? This is a little tricky. Chu Kuangren's eyes were serious. He could handle ordinary great Tao lords and even defeat them would not be a problem. However, the blood god was a peak great Tao lord. Not to mention that he had devoured the heavenly Tao. Looks like today's going to be a tough battle. Not far away, the Dharma Taoist master, flowing water path master, and the others had also arrived. When they saw the serious expression on Chu Kuangren's face, their hearts sank. It was the first time they had seen such an expression on their king's face. It was obvious how powerful the blood god before them was. The Firmament Empire had just been established today. If they were to face such a powerful enemy in the next moment, it would not bode well for the Firmament Star's future development. Most of the Firmament Star's cultivators are here, right? Let me deal with them all in one go, the blood god said proudly. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.